Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It's 7:01. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. As I said earlier, 7:01 p.m. for the Village of Walton Hills, Committee of the Whole. Good evening, everybody.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I think
I see the
so, yeah.
delay. You get the delay.
Yeah.
Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, March 9th,
Why do I have sound on here?
I said earlier, 7:01 p.m.
Oh, there it
Village of Walton Hills, Committee of the Whole.
is. Shut my speakers down.
You know, you never like to hear your own voice.
I know.
Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
That's
That's all
never
right.
happened to us before.
That's our big, if that's our big problem, we're in
Testing,
good shape.
testing. That was our test.
This meeting is being live streamed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are following House Bill 404 that allows public bodies to meet electronically through July 2021. I'd just like to welcome the residents or anybody else that's watching our meeting tonight. So first order of business, we call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller. Here. Councilman Linville.
Present.
Councilwoman Allen.
Here.
Councilwoman Terlasky.
Here.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Here.
Councilman Week.
Here. All of council present, along with Angela Rive, our fiscal officer, and John Montello, our law solicitor. Any comments related to the agenda from council or residents? And also, as residents know, they can make comments throughout the meeting as we move along, as so the residents, the council and anybody else. Anybody want to make any comments before? We want to move right on to the rest of the agenda? Good? Okay. Well, this is legislation, Resolution 2021-4, Internet Auction. We did have it on our last meeting. We put it for first reading. I don't know if any discussion on that. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's something we do every year.
Mayor, that's on the special council meeting agenda also for vote. I'm ready to vote on that. That's
Yeah.
more of a housekeeping thing we do every year, and we've got no residents questioning or anything like that, so I don't have any questions. I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay, we can talk, that's up to you. We are, because we know we are definitely gonna have our council meeting next week. So we could put it on if you want to, or it's whatever council's pleasure is. Either way, I agree with you there. So that would be up to council whether you want to tonight do second reading or pass it under suspension. Because we are, as you know, because we're in executive session, we're looking at certain things that we'll be addressing in the next meeting. So we will have the next week's meeting, next Tuesday, which could be definitely will be a council meeting. We could have a little bit more discussion if we need it before that meeting, or because we do have a budget, which we have talked a lot about, but Angela's got it we really narrowed it down after all our discussions and input from everybody. But there is a few things, and if nobody's not comfortable, we can always have another meeting too, but we'd like to get it done before the end of the month. So we're in pretty good shape because we know we do have some time here. So that's up to council what you want to do with that, or we can wait till the special council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to vote on the internet auction also. We've done it for so many years in a row.
How does everybody?
I have no problem.
Mayor Collier.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, and members of council, I just had one question, and I know this is a very, very small item as it relates to the internet auction itself, but, I had similar concern last year and again this year as it relates to making sure that we advertise that we are going to have the internet auction in a generally published newspaper. And I don't know what generally published newspaper means for Walton Hills. And that's kind of, and there's another piece of legislation that made me think about, how and where we publish. As a Cuyahoga County municipality, what is described as a generally published newspaper? Is it Summit County. I'm not sure. So that's the only question I have is where we would post this notice about this internet auction before we do it.
Mayor, if I may ask?
Yes, go ahead.
these
Go ahead,
questions?
Angie.
So I did look, I haven't seen postings for these GovDeal internet auction pieces in the last year and a half, so we definitely will going forward. That's something I took a look at. But for other items, like when we go out to bid and other items we would post for, we typically post, we go through Advance Ohio Media, so we could technically be posting in the Plain Dealer, we could be posting in the local Sun newspapers, Copley News, things like that. We try to hit somebody in Cuyahoga County, just depending, and then also in our journal, obviously. And we do use Gov Deals, so the auction would be, the information would be in there that it's accessible on Gov Deals, should someone need to go. But yeah, I did look and I couldn't find, we've only been selling a few things each year, older service vehicles, older police cars, we sold some dishes from the event center, but this past year we didn't post any of that, and I looked in the previous year and didn't see a newspaper payment for that particular thing either, so I will make sure going forward we post.
But last year we did sell some.
Last year I think we may have also sold an old police vehicle, but yeah, I'll have to look back.
Yeah, I think the intent here is good. I mean, what the state allows municipalities to
Yeah.
advertise this and do the sale by internet, do the internet auction.
Yes.
But it's the notification to the public that
Absolutely.
still has to take place first, and that is.
Yes, I did
that's
take a
the
look at
news-
the ordinance as well.
That's the
So-
newspaper part.
So I will make sure going forward we do have advertisement.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with the legislation the way it is, everybody, though?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll make note of that. How does everybody feel with, for the special council meeting, whether to vote on it, second reading?
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to vote on it. I don't have a problem.
Okay. Like I said, it's up to you guys. We know we're having another meeting, so and it's not holding anything up, just so you know. Yeah, it would get one piece of legislation off the books if nobody has any questions. Up to you. It's up to you guys. We can come back to that if you want to think about it. Okay, why don't we move on to item B then, okay? Resolution 2021-6, blanket purchase orders. Okay. Any questions on that? I know we have on for first, we voted on that last month. We have that on, that was voted on first reading. So we do have it on tonight. That's the same thing. We can go second reading, if you would like.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like Angela just to say why we're doing this.
Sure.
Again, we did have a couple questions.
Yeah,
via,
absolutely.
social media. Some people were asking some questions, so if there are, for the residents, so they
Absolutely.
fully understand what we're doing
So
here.
once again, this is a procedure we've been doing all along, is opening blanket purchase orders for our pre-approved contract purchases, such as rubbish, utilities, social work services. We've already been opening the purchase orders to encumber that full amount we're gonna owe for the year. We've done that at the beginning of each year. This particular piece of legislation is to put a procedure in place at the recommendation of the auditors and an auditor state bulletin to say that the governing body has information and knowledge ahead of time and approves of a certain limit on opening that, individual purchase order. This is not for anyone to come in and try to get business from us. This is, we've already contracted with Kimball. The fiscal officer needs to open the purchase order for $150,000 for the year to cover 12 months of trash. And then we would revisit if we need to, later in the year, if we find out that's gonna increase, I will, make mention as we review budget each month, hey, we're going over a little bit. I'll be opening a second purchase order for the remainder of the year, however much that may be. So we do it, like I said, it's mainly utilities and operational things, but everything's already been pre-approved and voted on in terms of the people that would be getting the purchase order opened in their name, the vendors.
And the Ohio Revised Code actually has a section for it that's in the legislation, which
Yes.
is ORC 5705.41, item D, which is pretty lengthy, but they address it. I mean, so they understand that municipalities, communities, cities use, blanket purchase orders, and they have it right there in the Ohio Revised Code.
Right.
And-
It's important to set a limit for you, the governing body, to know and be aware. We could always go higher in the future if we need to. We can go lower if we start having lower costs. But this 150, I spoke to the auditor, he said, make it robust enough to cover one of your largest POs, which trash is one of our largest POs. So, that's kind of where the guide came from, about the 150,000.
And that will cover also anything that somebody buys that's within their purchasing power.
Correct.
As far as their budget, but just so everything that is bought is covered under
Would
a
be covered,
purchase order.
exactly. So if I open a purchase order for the service department, that's a blanket to cover multiple vendors like Lowe's or Home Depot or BEI Supply. They would never be able to go beyond their budget, which a lot of time is obviously not 150,000 per line. But that allows me to say, I'm gonna open one for 5,000 for operating supplies. I'm gonna open one for 10,000 for repair and maintenance of buildings and land. So that also does include those general blankets that cover some smaller vendors within them by department. So that just saves time as well on the end of the finance piece, because we're not constantly opening a new purchase order every time we cut a check or make a purchase for routine items. If someone has some capital purchase, this does not apply unless we've reviewed a contract and approved it, and then we move forward with that.
Is this widely practiced by other communities?
Yes, it's, the auditor of state requires it, so we just haven't.
Sorry?
The auditor of state the purchase order process itself? Yes, it is.
'Cause,
That's widely practiced to open blanket purchase orders. Each city does it a little bit different. Some may do a blanket for individual vendors. Maybe a service department somewhere else says, I'm gonna do one for Sears, for the fire department, for the rec department, and for the main administrative department. But they may have 5,000 open for each of those departments specific to that one vendor. We're a little smaller here, so when I say blankets for service and rec and admin expenditures, we're gonna have smaller amounts going out. If we need to buy office supplies in our office here for the admin staff, that could cover Office Max, WB Mason, quality ribbon and supplies that we use, and that way, they're not gonna usually be opened in any more than 5,000 increments, because they expire at the end of 3 months. And then we revisit and say, okay, we can close that out, we didn't use all of it, but it's always gonna stay within what we've budgeted for those line items as well. So,
Denny, in the legislation here, you'll see it even has the whereas the fiscal officer has spoken with the auditor of the state regarding blanket purchase order limits. And the auditor of the state has actually a section in the Ohio Revised Code relating to it.
yeah.
So they address it because, they encourage communities to use the process, plus they've also addressed it. So it's nothing we're doing, we're following the Ohio Revised Code. They have a section.
I understand that,
in the audit.
yeah.
And I don't mean to bug anybody, but we are required, Denny, you have to put your mask on. We are required to wear our mask. I don't mean when you drink or eat, we're allowed to take it down, but thank you. In state buildings, we're required, in city buildings. Thank you. But yeah, Denny, so
Here, let me give you a little excerpt of the revised code too, that might help you, Denny. So Part D of this 570541 revised code says, except as otherwise provided by Division D2 of this section, the fiscal officer make any contract or given any order involving the expenditure of money unless there is attached thereto a certificate of the fiscal officer of the subdivision that the amount required to meet the obligation, or in case of continuing contract to be performed in whole or in part, is, to meet the obligation by the fiscal officer, in contract encumbrances, okay? So then it goes on to say, has been lawfully appropriated for such purpose and which was part of our budget, that's what we'll approve, and for such purpose is in the treasury or in the process of collection on the credit side, to appropriate fund free from any previous encumbrances. And then the certificate shall be signed by the subdivision's fiscal officer. Okay, so we get that certificate of resources from the county to tell us if we're gonna stay in our budget or not, how much we have to work with. And then from there, we go on to, I'm trying to find for you where it discusses doing purchase order.
I actually printed it off, but it printed so small, the font.
It is so
I
small.
barely can,
Okay, number 2 of this section D says, the Board of County Commissioners can adopt a resolution exempting county purchases of $1,000 or less. So a lot of these are usually made at the higher level. And then in that section 2 under this is where it also states that each individual municipality can have approval by their governing board. So that's why the auditor is recommending it. It's out there, and usually whatever filters down from the higher government, like the county, comes right down to the cities as well. So yeah.
What does that $150,000 each, what does that mean?
Each meaning, if I have water bills for the year that are $150,000, I'm gonna open one for Cleveland Division of Water for $150. If trash comes out to $150 for the year, I'm gonna open one for Kimball for $150. If, you know what I'm saying? So not everyone is $150, it's just allowing up to that amount. Like I said, trash is about our highest payment for the year. So if you come down from there for each utility, okay, let's say Dominion, I only need $75,000 per year, then that one's not gonna be $150, it's gonna be $75,000. But if we have a year where gas prices spike and we're in a new contract with our carriers for our gas, then that may need to go up. So that just allows the wiggle room for me to open that purchase order for those contract services that council's already approved of, or that utilities that we're already using. It's not to say everyone's gonna be $150, Denny, it's just kind of a coverage point, and using the highest thing, that's kind of trash, so that's where I pulled that from. And I ran that past the auditor, because I almost had it too low. So,
Well, what's the normal number of contracts like this that are let each year?
well, it depends, because when we do our utilities, we do a fixed, usually we're on like a 3 or a 5-year contract for utility pricing. So we have someone that helps us get locked into a good price for utilities, and we usually go with that for 5 years. Trash, we went over in the fall, was a 5-year with the option to roll over. So we'll revisit that probably sometime this year and see what the consortium's doing. We may also have contract service, we approve Tom Jordan each year, that's a contract. So I open his purchase order for the whole year. It's not gonna be anywhere near this amount, but anything that we've approved in here to have a contract. So it just depends each year how many we have. Because we've got individual contracted services, and then we've got, larger contracts like our trash.
So if we issued like 10 contracts like this, that would be like $1.5 million.
No, but it's not, because you're sticking too much to the 150, Denny. It's to say I can do up to 150. Most of our contracts are not that high. Trash would be that high.
Angela?
Most of the others are not that high.
Shouldn't this be a little more specific in naming the kinds of things that we do?
No, the purpose is to make it general for you. We go over the budget to be specific and tell you what we're doing contracts for.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion, and there was some confusion on social media also, where we are not budgeting anything extra
Right, this has-
than what we're budgeting in the budget.
Exactly.
There's
This is
not
all
one penny
approved and
more.
within our budget.
Yeah, it's just coming from our pre-approved budget.
Angela?
Yes,
So our village engineer
yes.
would be a blanket PO.
The village engineer himself, specifically when you appointed him, he is a payroll.
Payroll.
Chagrin
then.
Valley, as our engineering company,
Okay.
is a blanket, correct?
So, Denny, so Chagrin Valley
Their
Engineering
services, they're a
would be
blanket.
the blanket purchase order for
I'm
their
sorry?
services. Chagrin Valley Engineering,
Okay,
they would be a blanket purchase order for their services.
Same thing with
But
Safe
that may
Build.
only be up to
Mhm.
$25,000, and that's it. It can't go over more than what we already approved
Right.
to be spent for them.
So your specifics are in the budget line items that we'll go over later
So-
today. Because
It-
this will never the budget will supersede this at all times in terms of amounts for purchase orders to be opened. If I say I have trash and trash prices came down and I only need 75,000 in the budget for that,
Yeah.
then I'm only gonna open that purchase order for 75. And then the budget, we will always revisit. We're gonna start revisiting that throughout the year and probably at the end of every quarter. You know, are we on track? Did we find an increase in one of our contract services to where we now need to adjust what I mapped out for the year, right? So the budget's always gonna be the first rule, okay? Because that's governed by the county certificate of resources. We don't want to, we can always get an amended certificate if we know we have more money coming in, which this year with road projects, we'll be doing some of that. We'll revisit things a lot. But this is just to then go back and say, okay, if we've got this many contracted services in here, fiscal officer's allowed to go ahead and open the purchase order for the whole year. So we're not thinking we're better off in position financially in any given month than we really are. We've already taken all that money out that we're gonna owe for that contract for the year, or that we anticipate we'll owe. It's out for the year, you know. So every month we're accurate, versus if I don't open a blanket and I just pay Sugar and Valley each month, we're gonna look like we're way ahead at some point in the year, and then I may say, oh, but I'm behind 2 Sugar and Valley invoices they haven't sent me. There's, you know, $30,000 that we still owe that's not really, you know, it helps keep the numbers clean too.
And
That's why the auditors
Yes,
suggested it.
exactly.
Angela,
Yes,
I was going to say, and this was also under the guidance of the auditor.
yes,
to
absolutely.
streamline.
We need to have it,
To
yes.
streamline everything, and so we can see exactly where every
Yes.
dollar is going
Yes.
to. Instead of 500 different POs, we may only have 50 different POs.
Correct, and I do
open.
sometimes have individual purchase orders, I'm not saying I don't. So if we've got a vendor that's, you know, if Rob could go, they could have service going to Home Depot and Lowe's all day long, and that's something that's pretty common. But we may have something in the rec department that is a field trip we're gonna provide for the campers. That person's not getting a blanket purchase order, that's a one-time-a-year thing we're doing, and I'm gonna create a purchase order separate for Super Games or for, you know, whoever we're gonna utilize for that particular instance. They're still gonna get their own purchase order, and it's a much smaller scale. This is just to make it life easy and encumber everything on the contract services ahead of time. And yeah, it's not a suggestion by the, I mean, it's a requirement from the auditor. It's something we should have had for several years now. So,
And the auditors, when they come back, because they recommended it, they will be looking to see that we put it into place.
absolutely.
And the reason they do these things is uniformity, because they
Yes.
want the cities, when they come in to audit, it's nice that the communities do the same thing the same way. It's much easier for them to audit and faster, because, you know, they're here a long time, you know, so it's, you know, that's what they recommend, and that's, they looked at, that's the first thing they look at, the recommendations, and
That's
see
right.
if they've been, you know, put into place.
Right. This is a protection for council, Denny. That way you guys are aware of what's being opened, instead of me just opening them like like we have been for the past, you know, since I've been here. Now everybody knows, hey, this is gonna be the upper echelon of what might be open on a purchase order. And you do see it in the report 52 each month, what we have open in encumbrances, but, you know, this is just a little more insight. There'll be a little more pieces of insight all along the way this time, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead,
I
Jennifer.
think that for our special council meeting, this should just remain on as a second reading. Just
Sure,
to
absolutely.
give time to clarify with everybody, any other residents,
got
things
it.
like that.
Okay.
You know, we could
And the
always,
residents are welcome to call me, you know, if you guys get calls, I know not everybody's on our meetings, but please, they're welcome to call up here and have a conversation about any piece of legislation or anything we're doing, anything in the budget that we'll discuss tonight, they can give me a call, and I'm happy to clarify.
Or any of us,
Yeah,
which we know. You can
absolutely.
call a council, call me, any of us are
Mayor Kohler, I
always
have
ready
one
to
more.
talk. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, so Angela, what happens if there's a blanket purchase order for professional service, and you don't make it for 150, but it matches what we have in the budget, say $60,000,
Yes,
and we get 3/4 through the year, and it appears that blanket is going to be exhausted. What's the process
we're gonna
to?
start having a separate budget, we may amend this budget, I know in the past, it seems like it hasn't been done that way, but a budget is always a working document. So especially, like I said, with road projects going on this year, I've tried to capture everything we know currently in this budget we're gonna go over, but we will, I guarantee we will have to revisit throughout the year. And that's normal, you should probably do that, there might be, You know, Tom Jordan, we know is a set monthly rate. He's probably not gonna go over unless there was extra services. But HR, sometimes we've got a monthly rate for them of $600. If we're hiring and doing interviewing and doing some other things, then in any given month, there's a little bit of extra expenses to that if there's extra hours put in beyond what the scope of our contract was. So, yeah, well, we would revisit it, and then what we can do is we do an amended budget. Yeah,
So council will be alerted before.
absolutely, yeah.
Before
I
a
would let you
second
know, this is coming
PO
up.
is issued.
You know, we've got one more quarter to go, and we've almost exhausted the trash
Mm-hmm.
cost. It went up farther than we thought for some reason this year. And now we need to go ahead and we will, and then with anything else, you know, if there's other things, obviously, we'd like to tackle them all at once. So I would try to tie everything in, and we would absolutely just amend our budget. So instead of just doing this one budget this year and the final at the end of the year, it's quite possible we will have in the middle. Especially as we're running capital projects and now we're accounting for them how we need it to be. In the past, we didn't realize we weren't allowed to put that expense against the, or that reimbursement against the expense. So now that we're doing both sides of it, that's gonna change the scope a little bit of how we see all of our projects going out. So, and you know, if we have some big windfall and we realize we can go do side streets later, well, we're gonna wanna revisit that, and then we'll update our budget and vote on an amended budget. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mayor?
Yes.
Is I understand amending the budget, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the process then for, if you're gonna exhaust the PO process, we would have to come back and revisit that also, is that correct?
Well,
Or
we
how
would,
does that?
you won't have to revisit this piece of legislation. It would just be that, okay, we're gonna amend our budget. If everyone agrees to that, I'm now gonna open another purchase order for the remaining 30,000.
Because we've got
Right.
enough purchase orders.
Exactly, because that's still gonna be only one purchase order under the 150. So if I need it just for like last quarter, 3 months, if we've discussed it already, we've amended the budget because, you know, Chagrin Valley's over for the year now, they're gonna be over, then we won't, that'll be it. Once you approve and we amend the budget, then I'll say, okay, I'm gonna open one more $30,000 purchase order.
What happens if you get to the limit of the purchase order, the $150,000?
Same thing, we can discuss. This is just to say that initially I'm not gonna open any higher than 150. And you'll see probably in budget, I've got 165 for trash, actually, just based on last year, but I'll open 150 to start. There's no problem with that. Because I can open it for, you know, for that amount or less, and then look along the way and see where are we at. Because maybe we're not gonna need, you know, if I budget 165 and God love us, we don't need 165, well, that's fine, then I didn't open it and I didn't encumber that money and tie it up. So, yeah, same thing.
Any other questions for that? So we're gonna go with second reading on that? Not to bug anybody, did we decide about the internet auction, or we can, okay, we'll circle back around.
Where have you heard that
Everybody's
before?
buddy, okay. It's all good. It's all good, okay. Item C, resolution, okay, are we done? What I forgot to ask, any questions from any residents or anybody watching?
No resident questions that I can see. Sarah, I'm not missing anything, am I? Okay, I'm in the live chat, but I don't see any of that.
We good then, Sarah? Roosevelt, anything? Okay, thank you. Okay. Ready to move on to item C? Resolution 2021-7, Sharpscape Senior Lawn Care. That's our senior lawn care. We only had, Sharpscapes was the only bidder this year. And the price to the residents is the same as last year. There was no increase. So it's the same amount as last year.
Mayor, would you mind saying what those amounts are, just in case someone's watching? And I have it, unless you want me to do it, I have it right here.
You can.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, or if someone, yeah. from-
I just happened to open it to the page.
Yeah,
just in case,
right there.
Because I did get a couple questions on this also, which but anyways, up to 1 acre, lawn cutting only is $785. And if you have the leaf pickup is $955. If you have 1 to 2 acres, lawn cutting only, it goes up to $975. And then 2 acres with the leaf pickup is $1,210. Then 3 acres is more than that, but I'm assuming this is gonna be posted on the village website.
It's
also.
already there.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay.
It's already posted.
Also, I did get a question from, Mayor, from a resident asking me about earned income. There's qualifications to be part of this program, and earned income, your retirement is not
No.
part of earned income.
No
Any
Social Security
retirement,
either.
Social Security, anything like that, investment income, anything like that. When we first designed this, it was for, like if you worked, you were retired or senior age, whatever, and you worked a part-time job at, Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and you made over $10,000, then that's where that would come in, if you actually had a job. But retirement income is not included.
Correct. And then just to also point out, each time we do our contract with Sharpscapes, it is a 1 year with an option to do a second, that's what the pattern we've been following with them based on rates. We have usually done a second year with them, but just so that information is out there for you.
Mayor Colgraf?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the item that, that kind of sparked my attention to the whole advertisement piece. When I saw we only had one bid, made me wonder, why do we only have one bid? Of course, you never know why a contractor decides to bid or not bid. But for this type of service, I know there are a lot of contractors that can perform this type of service, and this has nothing to do with Sharpscapes. It's just I'm concerned about the advertisement piece. Again, as I said earlier, I mean, it looked like we advertised for this, and correct me if my reading is incorrect. We advertised this in Summit County, in the village of Northfield. But as large as Cuyahoga County is, and even vendors here in Walton Hills, I just wonder how many vendors actually saw this notice through this means of advertisement. So I'm just surprised that our advertisement was in Summit County.
I can check with Lisa, because she prepares the ad for this and for the snow plowing, but just when we say we're using, like it says at the top, you'll see Copley newspapers, but that may push it out to all the Sun papers. So
Right.
there may be some also in Cuyahoga County that received it. So let me check with Lisa. Like I said, this is Local IQ. That's another one that we use sometimes, and I know during garage sale season, I think we use them as well, because I know we've gone through Copley News before. But we do also, when we use Advance Ohio Media, that puts it through Cuyahoga County as well. So I could ask that question.
Yeah, at the end of the day, whoever wins the bid wins the bid, but, to increase competition, to increase the chance for, supplier diversity, I think there's maybe another way to do that. So if you can check into that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
No problem
Good
there.
point, Brian.
I know, nothing to do with that, Ray, because I agree there, but for some reason with this contract, this isn't the first time we've only had one. I think,
Their prices are very competitive. I know for sure on snow plowing, we always only
Yeah.
get Sharpscapes, because these are long driveways here, and nobody else can match that price for the time they're gonna put into doing Walton Hills driveways. So I don't know if lawns tend to be the same.
I don't know,
But I'll ask.
yeah, I think the most we ever had was 3, and that was quite a few years
Right.
ago.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
one decided not, but good idea, doesn't hurt to, competition's good.
And that's, the only expense of the village is the advertising, is that correct? The rest of the contract is on the homeowner.
Right, the rest,
Right.
they pay us, and
Our
then we
only
pay out
expense is paying
Sharpscapes.
for the ad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're just kind of the third party, just
The other
helping
piece
the
of it that-
residents get a consortium type price.
The other piece that might play into, is if other landscapers don't remember our schedule, okay? Like, it's February, Walton Hills is gonna be going out to bid, and I don't know how other cities, if they're on the same timeline as us or not. But there could be someone that came in and just missed the bid deadline too. I don't know. I'll talk with Lisa and Rob and find out.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yeah.
always was thinking also that, you know, it's a big commitment, because they're here on Tuesdays, and maybe some of these landscapers don't want to tie it up with the village. You know, I don't know, I mean, it's lucrative probably, but they maybe want to hit more residential and other areas. I don't know, it was just a thought in my head, because these take a while to do this whole
They
community.
do, and with a lot of
It's-
landscapers
it's a
doing
lot of
more than
land.
just
It's
lawn.
an acre or more, so, for each household.
Right.
So, just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was also, this would be, we could go first reading on that. We still have time, you know, it's, for next week. So if you want first reading on that, we're fine with that. It's up to council if you want to do that, or pass it for suspension, either way. We'll go through them at the end here again. Any questions? Any residents have any questions related to
No
that?
resident comments yet.
Sarah, did you pick up anything, or?
Did you, oh, Calman, Sharps Peaks is located in Walton Hills as well. So they're a local vendor.
Well, makes it convenient. Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I mean, if we want to pass it tonight, that's fine. If we want to do first reading, that's fine. I mean, it's the only one we have, so, you know.
Yeah. I could,
I think so.
I could go either way. If everybody wanted to vote on it, I'd vote
Yeah,
on it. I
exactly.
will vote in the affirmative when the time comes anyway.
Exactly.
yeah.
For it, so, but if you want to wait just to give people a chance to chime in, I don't think we're gonna have any, but you never know, and I mean, for transparency, I don't care. We can
All right.
do it.
That's right.
That would be a good thought, John. I like that idea. I think
Cut before we've collected all the payments.
we'd all be happy with that, right? I got a feeling, though, what do they were saying it's gonna be beautiful this week and then cold again on the weekend. So, but it is still March, right? Because one thing we know, it never
Yeah,
snows, it never snows in April in
Oh, no.
in Walton Hills, right? Okay, item D, Resolution 2021-8, a change order, number 1 for Breezy Trucking and Paving. Okay, there's quite a bit there. It's not a change order for us.
No.
There's no money out of our coffers, it's just that we're administrating the project.
Right. So
Um,
we're gonna pay first
so-
and get reimbursed from Maple.
Right. And if you go through the packet here, it's pretty much explained. It was in the agreement. Plus, Joe did receive, we do have a letter here from their PE, Maple Heights, of course, CC'd Mayor Blackwell and their finance director, their law director, everybody's on here. I'm sure everybody's read the letter, just basically saying the city of Maple Heights will pay for 100% of the cost of this work per the terms of the attached project cooperation agreement between Walton Hills and Maple Heights dated October 9, 2020. As the proposed change order work was not a line item contained within the original contract documents, the city of Maple Heights will pay for this work directly within 30 days of receiving an invoice from the village of Walton Hills. Okay,
And-
so it is, and this work is in Maple Heights. It's at the intersection of Madada Avenue and Riona Avenue in Maple Heights. It's a water line replacement. So, I don't know if there's any, Angela, you want to explain
No,
how that works any better?
I've
or-
gotten application number 1 payment out for Breezy. And so the way that works, you know, we've worked it all out. Joe and I had a conversation with Ed Wren, their engineer, last week, and then Ed passed everything along to their accounting staff. They have the 70% of their money coming from OPWC and their other 30 from them. So of that first invoice, I will go ahead and once I have the canceled check back from Fabrizi, I will send that along with my invoice to Maple Heights. Maple Heights will pay us directly their percentage, and then OPWC will pay us directly on behalf of Maple Heights for their part of the percentage on that, so. Yeah, so our money won't be tied up for very long.
There I had extensive discussions with Mr. Moran as well.
Yeah,
Good.
we need to pay up front because we're the lead, obviously,
Right.
and we could have got into a little more convoluted payment scenario, but I said this is the way to keep it the cleanest, so just let's do this way.
I think, John, you did request the letter and stuff too, yeah, which,
Okay.
We should probably pass this tonight, unless people, I mean, only to, the project needs to continue on.
well,
Another week, you know, or-
yeah, another week would be fine. That's up to, yeah, we could, that's fine with another week on that one too.
I don't have
You
any
know.
problem passing this tonight, just to give Maple Heights,
Right.
notice that that it's done and over with. I mean, I don't, this was, it was because their water main broke up there, and that's
Correct.
what
Right.
this is for, and they need to have this
Get this
all
going.
said and done,
Yes.
and get it over with, and I don't have any problem based on that. It's really got nothing to do with us, other than what Angela said. We're the go-between for the money.
Right.
Because we're the biggest part of that project, so that's where we come in. But other than that, I think we're showing good faith to Maple Heights and Fabrizi Trucking if we show that we recognize it and just get it done,
Mr. Mayor, I agree totally with Brian. It needs to be expedited. I drive by there every day, and I don't want to see any more sewer and water people in there, and so they need to get it fixed, repaired, and it's not our money.
And the job's going very well. I don't know if anybody, gosh, just the last couple of days between Sunday and today, they have really, they've taken advantage of the weather, removed the curbs, poured some concrete, putting the base down. There's really been a lot. Fabrizi's really been on it. The project's going pretty well. And of course, our relationship with Maple Heights is well. Mayor Blackwell is very easy to deal with. Me and her have conversations about it. She's very appreciative of our service department and how everybody reacted when we had the water main break. And so we'll continue that. It's our neighboring community, and we want to work together. So
Ray will be on his bicycle before he knows it.
I'm cutting the ribbon.
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
Angela, it was my understanding that this piece of legislation isn't holding up anything for the work being done.
No, the work's been completed.
Okay.
The work's
So
been
that's-
completed, but
okay.
I'm gonna invoice them soon. So, I mean, because the work has been completed, again, it can wait a week. We're not saying it can't, but the work's already been done.
Right.
And this is a formality of getting that work done, and water main obviously couldn't wait for us to pass legislation. And so, right, just in keeping in line with getting invoices out and payments made to everybody and money back to us. That would be the only reason I would say if you're comfortable passing it tonight, go for it. I mean, if not, again, it can wait till next week.
right. There's really, it's up to everybody what you want to do here. We would tell you, and you, everybody here knows. And unfortunately, we are going to have the meeting next week, because I don't, we'll probably be here late tonight. First of all, doing the budget, plus we got executive session, which is connected to the budget. And so we will have a council meeting next week too. So to get back, you want to kind of go through it right now and see who's going to introduce what, and then we'll move on to the other business, because I do have something there, and then we're going to start the review process.
Sure.
For item A, what would you like to do? You want to go second reading?
Mayor, just to me, for tonight's meeting and stuff, since it's going to be a special council meeting, I would rather just put everything on second and first reading tonight and then we can pass and expedite next weekend, or next week.
Then mind
Especially
you,
for
you'll
breezy
have more.
trucking, I have a feeling that we're gonna have people that are gonna have a lot of questions about that, and some confusion. So I would really rather not push that through if we don't need to tonight.
And the only thing, just, like, okay, that's fine. We will have, we'll definitely have a little more legislation, we'll have.
Budget,
the
hopefully,
budget.
next,
And
we'll
what
go on
else?
legislation for next week, and then potentially the CBA.
Yeah,
if-
of course, and then the collective bargaining agreement. We would have
So
two more.
we'll have more legislation, so we will potentially have 6 pieces next week. So that, I'm just throwing that out there. None of these are that urgent, though, that they have to go tonight. I'm fine with anything.
That's gonna be up to you.
But that next week is just merely voting on them, because everything else will have been, we've discussed all of these unless we push them to third readings altogether.
Right.
Correct.
The only thing we'll probably have, maybe
So it'll be a quick
more
one.
discussion on the budget and the collective bargaining,
Oh, absolutely.
if that,
But for these
or some-
pieces.
Yeah, for these pieces, yeah. So that's really, it's up to the body here. It's,
Whatever everybody wants to do, that's fine.
So that would move A to second reading.
yep, we'll go second reading then. B would be second reading.
Yes.
Is everybody else comfortable with that? For next,
Right.
I mean, next week, technically, it's supposed to be the week that we legislate, everything and do the readings, so.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay.
And then your other
The
two.
majority comfortable?
That's fine.
Okay, so so we don't go twice. Who wants to introduce item A for second reading tonight?
I know you.
Gloria? Okay. Now we're on item B. That would be second reading too.
I'll introduce that, Mayor.
Okay, Jennifer for second reading. Resolution 2021-7, the Sharpscape Senior Lawn Care.
I'll do that.
Brian's going to do that. And then Resolution 2021-8, the change order for Breezy.
I'll do that.
And that would be for first, Brian, yours would be first reading,
Yes.
and Mary, that's first reading too.
The trucking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's first reading too.
Jennifer said there might be questions, so we're gonna put it up first.
The internet is on first? The first
Yes.
one?
No,
Internet second.
Second.
Second, Gloria, I'm
Blanket
sorry.
purchase orders are second as well.
And like on the Febreze, that's strictly for the residents' sake, since we're the administrator of the project, we're running the project, because we had a bigger share of it, and that's how it became that way. We have a bigger share than Maple Heights. We are the lead, and so we have to pass legislation because they had a change order, which they're paying for. No, nothing out of our money. It's all for Maple Heights. But we still have to make a record of it. Okay, everybody good with that part of the meeting, the legislation? Okay. We'll move on to item 5. I did want to talk about Chapter 1292, off-street parking and loading regulations. I did send a couple of drafts. One of the drafts you've seen before. We talked about it last month. We had some suggestions from the body here. And it really wasn't so much the suggestions in the 1292.11 construction standards. It was for 1292.12, the maintenance and storage standards. So Joe and Rob, we met, they came up with this. In the event of a discrepancy between the need to perform asphalt on that, came out of the last meeting. How do you separate the two? So that is what we have in front of us here. Just so you know, you'll see it again. I wanted to see if there was any more conversation or if it's pretty good. We felt, Joe, I'll say we because I was part of it, but to be honest with you, I rely on our engineer and Rob, and they felt very good about it. So I'm moving it to George Smarigan We did the first part, and he felt good about that, but he did not see the second part of this, which is the 1292.12. So I was going to send that to him. Then he gives us a blessing, I'm going to set up a planning commission meeting. And, because this does have to go to planning commission to change this ordinance. And then from there, then it comes back to council, and you guys will vote on it. So you'll see, you know, the change in between there before you vote on it. I didn't know if we wanted to have anything else related to that.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question or two on that.
Yes,
As I read that, I understand the first part, the paving of the entire surface has to be done with those materials that are specifically listed in that ordinance. And then it also lists materials that cannot be used. The maintenance section has just what you said. If it states whether it's a repair or a needed complete resurface will be the judgment of the village engineer. And they've added that language. My question is, there's nothing in there that points to what material a repair is allowed to be made out of. If the village engineer, if this ordinance is saying you can use nothing but the materials that are, because the maintenance also points back to the first ordinance.
correct.
As far as materials, if the engineer is saying you can only, even with repairs, use those materials, then I can see where they remain silent on that in the maintenance section. But I don't want to get, we came into a problem with the original ordinance where it was too vague, and a judge agreed with the defendant that he could use whatever he wanted to use in a repair. I also have concerns that, and I'm talking specifically about some materials that the village uses to repair their streets and parking lots. I don't think it's the intent, first of all, for the village engineer to say you can only in a repair use hot asphalt or concrete or whatever that is, and we'll stick specifically with hot asphalt, because we don't use hot asphalt all the time. So I can see a business saying, why are you requiring me to use hot asphalt to fill a chuck hole in my parking lot when you guys use coal patch? So I don't also want to overburden by legislation our businesses here by having to use specifically what's in that first section, hot asphalt, for a hole, for a chuck hole in their parking lot. And I don't know construction standards, I'm not a construction person, but when coal patch would be sufficient to do that, I would feel more comfortable in the maintenance section if it were to state also for repairs that material that's used would be or needs to be acceptable to the village engineer for the repair material. That way we're specific, and if the village engineer said, no, you can't fill that hole with that, or you have too many holes that, that it needs to be this other material, whatever, then we have it specific that that repair specifically is under the determination of the village engineer. Right now, as I read it, if I were a business owner and I wanted to use one thing, I would take this and say, show me where it says that. And again, we had this problem where I specifically had a conversation with our engineers, and they said, well, construction standards are this and this and this and this, and this is how we do this. Our problem was it was not in our legislation. That was our problem. And so the judge says it's not in your legislation. I don't care about anything else. So I just want to make sure we're very specific of what somebody can use and what somebody cannot use in the resurfacing, or I'm sorry, in the complete surfacing of a lot or a driveway for a business, and for a repair.
Well, we have it specifically for the new, so it's just a matter of, let me talk to Joe and Rob and George, and we'll see what we can do with the maintenance. Because very specific already in the.
It's
the
very, in the first part for the complete project, or I shouldn't say project, but for a complete surfacing of an area, yeah, it is very specific. It's just not specific at all in the maintenance section of what somebody's allowed to use. It just says whether it's a repair or a resurface is up to the village engineer. It doesn't say anything else. I mean, is that how, would you agree with me, John?
The more specifically you get, the better. Same with the markings, you know, like the parking spaces. I think we should refer to standards, they know exactly what they are. But,
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
in regards to that, because I was looking at the lighting and the markings, as you were saying, Mr. Montello, and I was wondering if could be something in the first line that says all driveways, parking areas, curbs, bumper guards shall be constructed in accordance with current construction standard practices and the standards established by the following. You know, would that kind of help with that construction standard practices that we got caught with before?
I think
That's an evolving thing, and it would,
I think you're right, we could refer to maybe the Ohio building code, or I'm not a construction guy either, but I mean, if they have the right code that they go by, we should refer to it, you know, we should say the Ohio building code, or the Ohio construction standards code, whatever it is,
right.
the exact term.
I just thought that might be
And there too, so in case it gets amended again, we just, you know, say, we don't have to change our ordinance all the time, so,
That's what I was thinking, is that it could just kind of be a catch-all for that stuff. And there is something then to go back specifically to and say, if you've got a 10,000 square feet of parking, then you should have X number of parking spaces, you know, things like that.
I'm not sure what they look at now in determining that, but you're right, there's gotta be a code on it somewhere.
I do believe we have in some section of our code, because remember,
Yeah.
Mayor, when we redid the whole, and Mr. Smirgan was a big
Yeah.
part of that, and somewhere in there lays out specific, you know, how many handicap spots per like employees for a business or for things like that.
The markings, fine, but as far, that's, yeah, we can get some. This is actually more specific than what we have now is more specific than the general standard.
Right.
That's why this, because we revised it, remember, what happened in 18, then this body here, we revised it in 19, okay? 19 wasn't what was heard and what we revised in 19. What was heard in court was what was done in 8 before that, in 18. When it wasn't done in 18, but it was an older ordinance and it was started in 18. We recognized there was something not right from the court and we revised it in 19, and now we're, from this, no, we have to revise it, you know, even make it more specific. We'll have the most specific one in the area, which is a good thing. because our second one was very specific too, but we can do that. We'll recognize that. So let me take it back to Joe and Rob, and George, we'll get it right, and I know that's important to us. And anything else, I know we're having George review some other things, so.
Mayor, some of our planning members may have some input as well, some of our construction guys.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna do is, we're gonna tweak it a little bit, and then I'm gonna take it, the planning, because you'll get to look at it. I wanna get the planning meeting scheduled and get that moving on that, you know? And then you definitely can always have input again, too. So, okay. Is any comments from anybody, or?
Rob said the issue that went to court was the resurfacing of a lot, not the maintenance. We have markings and parking standards in our code.
I understand that.
Our
but-
original code pre-2019 said hard surface and dustless.
Yeah, I understand that message from Rob, but as I look at the repairing portion also, to me, there's a deficiency there in that repairing portion as I described it. I could be way off in left field. I don't, if everybody else doesn't feel that way, that's, you know.
No.
But I just
I
feel,
put it
now
on
that
because we
I'm
wanted to
looking
have
at that.
discussion, it's all good.
Mr. Mayor,
That's what, Brian, that's why it's here. Yes,
are you discussing the maintenance portion?
The maintenance.
yes.
I was thinking the same thing, because there's really, it's not addressing any kind of maintenance as far as what type of resurfacing materials. And without over or micromanaging this whole thing, it's, you know, you'd almost have to qualify it, and then how detailed you want to get, but let's say maintenance repairs of a parking area resurfacing for a pothole may use cold patch. But you're specific in saying a pothole. Now, if it's the size of a crater and it's 6 feet, you know, so this is, again, are we gonna measure the size of the pothole? I'm not the attorney, but throwing out there, like, if someone wants to just fix a pothole, you know, I think they should be allowed to use the cold patch. But with the resurfacing of a whole parking area, we all know they should be using hot applied asphalt.
Right.
So, I don't know if you want to add something like that, and as you were speaking, I was reading through this more thoroughly, and I thought there's really nothing to address, like a pothole, you know, kind of thing, and so that,
Well, the village engineer would address the determination whether or not,
And that's
but it's
why
the
it should
material
be
you're
placed in there.
specifically saying.
yeah.
that the village engineer, what Jennifer
It's in
was
there.
saying, the village engineer should make that determination, and that whether it's a minor repair or a major repair, and what is the best suited material for that.
there you go.
You know, or what's acceptable, what is the acceptable
Let him
material.
make the decision,
Right.
then what is the acceptable material to make the repair. I'm not an engineer.
Well, I think if you leave it up to the village engineer, you could have, like, we've had snow and all this, and today it's beautiful. So, okay, so now some business has a pothole or something in it now because of the weather, and it's getting a little bit bigger. But he knows he has this, it has to be repaired, but they can't come for another 6 weeks. So it would be up to the city engineer to say, okay, you can do this because you're going to have this, you know, in 6 weeks, so you could use this, whatever.
Right.
So it's possible that either or could be, but it would be the city engineer would be the one to say this, that, okay, you have the time, you know, we know the weather's beautiful today, and then the weekend it's supposed to snow again, so.
Right.
Do this right now, so nobody's falling in that hole in the meantime, and then it's going to be done, whatever the engineer says it should be.
Okay. Some very good comments. We'll take it back and tweak it some more. I'm going to, like I said, because I think we're there, we just got to make a few adjustments. So I'd like to get it rolling here with the planning commission, because they'll have comment on it too. and probably be right in the same place everybody here is, so that's a good thing, and me and Ray are part of that, so we'll take that to them, we'll talk about it. We'll also have George there, and have George put something together, and then we'll bring it from the Planning Commission to a COW meeting, and then from the COW meeting, it would go to legislation. So, what I'll do is we'll keep everybody in the loop with it as any of the stuff evolves too, because we also have, I want to get the group home stuff looked at again by George to tweak that again, just in case there's anything. We just want to, it's time to get George to clean up anything we have as far as any zoning issues that might be out there, so. Okay. Any other questions related to that part of the other business? Chapter 1292. Okay, any questions from any residents
No resident questions.
or any employees? Thank you, Mr. Kalman. Okay, the next item under other business is review of the budget. Does anybody want to water anything before we start, or everybody good? Okay. All right. Angela, well, let's,
Oh, he brought some up. We have some over here.
yeah, you want one?
Yes,
Does anyone else need water?
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, so this week we are going to go line by line through revenues and through operating costs only. Salaries have been redacted for this meeting because we do have executive session that will bring us full circle back to salaries next week. So your bottom line you're going to look at is inclusive of what I anticipate will come out of salary and collective bargaining discussions for us later on. So that's a true number down there right now, but I figured it's easiest to do it this way since we're doing COW ahead and we want to go through this budget, and rather than hold us all up or give you two versions, we're going to go through all of the revenues and operating lines. All right, so let's commence. Stop me as you have questions. So what you've got in front of you is essentially looking at what would have been your December report 52 side by side with the proposed budget for 2021. So I'm anticipating on the municipal income tax, we're going for utility tax, electric tax. I'm hoping we're going to go back up again. It seems to fluctuate every couple of years, and we were a little low because of COVID. So I'm going to bump that up. If we're halfway through the year and I see it's not going that way again, we'll revisit.
And stop anywhere anybody wants
Yeah.
in between here as we go.
I kept income tax withholding payments exactly the same. I'm not going to anticipate an increase. We did a 19 very strong. We ended 20 stronger than budget, which was excellent considering we had the pandemic. So I'm going to leave that right about where we landed for 2020. Anticipation of the individual, I did knock down almost 50,000. That's where I think if we're going to see a hit, we're going to maybe see a hit from people who got laid off that live in the village. Hopefully that won't be the case for too many, and then also net profit, pandemic and timing, we did supersede what we budgeted for last year, but I'm gonna keep us at that same budget amount just in case people are having any lingering, issues and extra costs into 2021 based on the pandemic that might, keep us from having an increase in net profit revenue. Any questions on tax revenue? All right, so LGF, local government distribution, we haven't really budgeted. Well, we did and didn't budget on and off for this in the past, and I did double check with the auditor. If it's money we anticipate getting, obviously, we should put it on the budget. Now, I have I put that at $16,565. We did get a little more in 2020, but I need to let you know that our camera revenue offsets that a little bit, coming from the county. They do ask for a report each year of what we've taken in camera revenue. And so cities that have camera revenue and a substantial amount of it do have a little bit of an offset on the local government funds that we get.
Could you explain when you say offset, meaning a deduction?
Meaning we would get less.
We get less from them.
Yeah, we don't get we get a little portion of local government funds from the state, and then we get a portion from the county as well. It's not enough money to go purchase a new vehicle for any department in any given year per se, but either way, it would be offset and we would be reduced. And we were, I think, the last payment at last year, we had a slight reduction from our camera revenue reporting, catching up to it.
From the county or from?
From the county,
Okay, so this-
absolutely.
This line item is combination of county and state?
Yes.
Local government funding?
Yes, both go into that same
Or
line.
local government, oh, okay.
Okay, so we could end up with more, that'd be great, but I'd like to stay conservative knowing our camera revenues where it is. Liquor and beer permit fees, I left at 1,000, because that's always, you know, a here or there. We ended at 25.50, and we may again, but I don't know what's gonna come down the pike with that, because we don't get that distribution as often. I think we get it like twice a year. 1,290 for other state shared taxes and permits. I am putting that down as well to about 15,000. And that's just being conservative again, because we don't always bank on how much we're gonna get from each of these, so I'm gonna leave that conservative. Now, property tax, you'll notice I also left a little bit lower, but I'm basing that off of what we've got on our certificate of estimated resources right now. All
That's
right,
the
under
special
The
assessment.
special assessments, right, exactly. So that's gonna be, trash, sewer, if we have anything where we did lawn abatement and we need to add that on.
Could, Angela, Mayor, through the mayor, the property tax is included in that thing, and to me, that's not a special assessment. Could we call that what it is?
It's when it
Would
comes
that give you
over from the
heartburn?
county, yeah, I can move it out and make a new line item. I'll
Just so
double check.
when we're looking at it, I don't know how anybody else
I agree.
feels, but, yeah.
I will double check what the county sends me, just to make sure I'm in line with, do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
What their line items are.
Okay.
Because inside millage might also be on that, which is a special assessment, so.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I will definitely do that for you, and then break out whatever is regular. All right, other grants or aid, this is like Department of Justice money that comes in, or UH Bedford money that comes in basically for community diversion. So, I'm gonna leave that at 5. We may have more, but that's not money that we're guaranteed each year. University hospitals could cut that off at any point in time. Department of Justice payments are far and few between. All right, concessions for the pop machine, left that where we budgeted in the past. Hopefully we'll have a better summer and more people up there. Concessions just for the Parkers, I did up that a little bit, knowing that we will hopefully have a little bit more normal Parker program this year. We'll probably have a little more revenue coming in from snacks for the Parkers. Rec entry fees for Parker program. I'm hoping we'll be higher, but I left it at 15. We ended last year at 14,815. I know we had a little bit of a compromised season from the pandemic. So I haven't caught up with Natalie yet. I know they're already taking payments in, but I can definitely, let you know if we anticipate that's going to be more right off the bat before we finalize some things
Right.
next week. But I'm going to leave
It's
that.
we've already exceeded our
Yeah.
amount of, and we'll have a report for next week.
Okay, good.
She opened it up even a little more. It's,
Okay, good. Excellent.
yep.
And of course, we do also have other expenses that go in, so there's a little bit of an offset with that. It's not, we don't make $1 million. It's a service to our residents to have that Parker program more than
Correct.
anything. Recreation programs and trips, I left 1,500 in there. God willing, we get back to being able to have some trips at some point in this year. Typically, that would be to the Playhouse and, restaurants and things for the seniors. Yoga revenue, yoga was off for part of the year, of course, because of the pandemic, picked back up toward the end of the summer. So I did put her in at about 1,000. And I can always touch base with Kathleen, the yoga instructor, to see what it's looking like for her, if we need to adjust that. Transportation's been going up and up, so I'm gonna leave that at the same budget we had last year, 3,500. Senior services, which is mainly senior lunches and then a few other little miscellaneous things we might do for them. I know it shows we had 3,500 in there, but some of those things can be broken out into other line items, so that's why I left that at 2,000 specifically, knowing that senior lunches, that's gonna pretty much probably cover that. And again, we can revisit if we open back up and we're in person and we start having a big influx. We've been having anywhere between, I think, 52 to 60 some people taking to go senior lunch. So if that starts to go up or we can get back to in person, we can look at it again. All right, so in our contracted services fees over here, this I'm gonna leave. Okay, so did I put this in here? I'm trying to think of what I stuck in here now. Bear with me. 78. I made a note, but I don't have my whole note. Per contract ones. Okay, so this, sorry, I skip over. The charges for other services is irrelevant. The dispatch services is what I'm looking at. They owe us approximately $220,000 in arrears because Oakwood owes us for a portion of 19 still. They owe us for all of 2020 because that contract was still in dispute, up in the air, what have you. And then they're going to owe us for this year just a little over 149, okay? So that is all inclusive of everything. I am been in contact with them. John has as well. I am still just waiting on them. They want to go back and check their figures again. I used their figures to come
Right,
up
we
with my
use
figures. And so if I need to get the auditor involved, I will, to just make sure they're getting on track with making the payments that they owe us in arrears. We also did do just a few little updates to the contracts for their purposes so that we can have an actual signed copy. I know they did a little bit of shift changing in dispatch and just coverage, the way they were doing coverage. So that got updated by Shannon. That got sent over as well. They're still waiting to hear back on that, even though we did meet in person with their chief. And they said, that all sounded fine. So on the accounting end of things, I'm going to keep bugging people till I get my money.
Well, we're bugging, it's a group, we're working
Yes.
it out as a group.
Yeah.
And the auditor is aware of,
Auditor is aware. So,
And Mr. Mayor?
yes.
Just a personal note, I'm speaking as a councilman, not a personal note, I shouldn't have said that. I know there was some dispute on monies owed and things like that through this dispatch contract with Oakwood. However, Oakwood knows that we were providing them a service and they owed us some money.
correct.
To withhold everything, to me, is abominable. And I don't appreciate it at all. $220,000 is a lot of money to withhold. They could have said, yeah, you're doing something, we do have these, you are providing us a service, we do know we have a contract with you, that you're providing us a service. There's a dispute over exactly how much. Here's a good faith, $50,000.
Absolutely.
Or 100, another $50,000 at some other point. They paid us nothing. And I don't appreciate that as a resident of Walton Hills, and I certainly don't appreciate it as a council person if that's how we're going to be treated.
The auditors also did not appreciate it and wanted to do a recovery for finding out to them, but I did let them know that because that original contract had not been signed by all parties, that we were still working things out. Another piece that convolutes things, or had in the past, is that Oakwood likes to mix the fire and dispatch contracts a little bit and say, hey, we're going to take this, you take this off and hold it for us. You have that piece of legislation you guys passed to do withholding taxes, and take it and then put it aside and give it back to them for equipment. That factored into all of this too. So I figured the numbers of what they owe us based on figures they gave me, and I agreed on most of it with the exception of we did not withhold anything from them in 2019, so I have nothing to give back. So I did point out to them that going forward, I personally want every contract kept separate. I'm not going to say, let's net it out. If you owe me for dispatch, you're paying me for dispatch. If I owe you for fire, then behind the scenes, I'll owe you for fire. You give me receipts for your purchases of equipment, and I will reconcile that out to your withholding and see if you still owe me anything. I think that it's very convoluted for them to think they can keep mixing up the contracts, and since we owe each other money, let's just, make it a wash or deduct this from here. That's very messy, in my opinion, and I've let them know I'm not allowing it to happen going forward.
Right, we're getting that clear. And the other thing is, we pay quarterly, 149, for fire, 149,000.
Yeah.
Right, we were
Okay.
paying them diligently.
We have,
Mhm.
up
Yeah.
until
Yeah. Now,
So,
I'm
we
sitting-
haven't paid our first quarter,
Correct,
Right.
I have that bill, I have a bill.
so it's,
just let me make a statement, though. Although I'm not impressed at all, I'm upset about the administration part of all this. Our fire service from Oakwood, the fire people are outstanding. This has no
Absolutely.
relationship
Right.
to our actual service that we get from them. Those people are fantastic. So it's got, the two don't have anything to do with each other.
yeah, and they should, and they shouldn't, and what shouldn't have anything to do with it is politics.
Right.
And that, it's a contract we entered to provide a service, and we paid for a service and expect that service. We provided a service to them and expected them to pay us for that service, no different, regardless of who's the administrator, who's the council, who is who.
Right.
Okay? So the thing that we can say, which is, we did everything correctly, okay, on our end. We received the service and we paid for the service. They owe us for the services, and it's at a place, a good place right now. You know, there's a number of people, the auditor, you know, I mean, it's not it's all out there. It's all out front. I mean, that's why we're talking about it right now. It's all out front there, and like we said, we didn't pay the first quarter yet, which is $149,000.
And they do promise a response in the near future, which they've been doing for a
Since
couple
December.
weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Technically, they've been doing it since 19.
Fiscal officer's near future has come to an end, so.
it's been a week since our last meeting now.
Well, we had to get past the whole contract, that no one signed it and all that, and get past all that baloney and got down to the what's
Yeah,
owed
but
and what isn't.
even with that, and that's a legal technical issue, that we passed the ordinance, the contract should have been signed, and it wasn't.
Okay, but let's not forget, they were paying at first, even though that contract wasn't signed.
They absolutely were, and then they started to bring up about
Yeah,
withholding
then
and fire
then they
equipment
stopped.
and.
Right.
With all this other,
And then
well,
there was
let's
a
do
piece to
this
take
and
out.
we'll do that.
Right.
And again, I'll go back to there's a dispute over how much money, but we know you're providing us a service, so we'll give you a minimum, stipend, because we know it's worth at least this much.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And
that
then-
would have been just good faith between neighbor municipalities.
And the disputed piece originally in the dispatch contract for services to Glen Willow has been removed from all of my figures. So even though we tried to fight hard to have that in there, because we were still, and sometimes are still, fielding their calls, because Chagrin Valley sends them into us, and they still have to get sent back out again, that piece has been removed from figures I gave them. So that is less a piece of their contract, because that was a big portion of what they were trying to avoid paying, and why they started to have issue with getting us paid on time. So every figure I've given them should be the most up-to-date, jive with what they asked for, and jive with what we withheld, and need to reconcile out for fire equipment on the fire side. That was 2018 now that we did any kind of withholding and took off their fire contract to give back to them, so.
We gave them a rebuttal with the actual numbers,
Yeah,
everything they owe us.
using their figures, I said,
Yeah.
okay, I agree,
Yeah,
this is a discrepancy, but this rest of it, I agree, so then here's what your total is.
So
that
there's
you're-
not a matter of thing, and here's the bottom line, which we all know. We're not happy with the service, believe me, there's other communities that would be glad to serve us. Okay, I mean, we're happy with the service, but if it comes down, we have problem with payment, then, we have other options. We're not locked in here, we're the customer,
Right.
okay? Just like they're the customer with us, and we've been good faith, but we're the customer here. I want you to know that as the mayor, I understand that part, and I want, expect that. And we've made that very clear, and have been very professional thing, but we're, it's at the point now where it's time. like Angela said, it's out there, we got the numbers together, the auditor's part of it, okay? It's not a dispute anymore. It's time to pay. That's where it's at.
So are we anticipating a lump sum payment, or?
That I don't know, that's what I'm waiting on their finance department to give an answer about. You know, they say they're just reviewing figures again, so I'm not sure what they need to review, I use their figures, but, okay, once they come back to me, then I have to determine, right, what are you gonna pay me, how much are you able to pay? Yeah, I'd love a lump sum payment,
But we want it all soon, we're not gonna,
Right,
we're not
right, we
a
can't drag it into
finance
another year.
company, we're
I
not
was just
gonna
gonna say,
finance it over, we
financing
provided the
this, yeah.
service. We pay them on a quarterly basis for their service they provide us, and we expect the same thing.
And my
Because that's how it's
intention-
worked out,
My
right?
intention is not to keep withholding, I don't want to withhold fire payments, I don't want these contracts mixed, I don't want to say, well, then we're not gonna pay ours, I want to keep it clean on our end,
Sure, and it should
and keep
be.
paying what we
Right.
owe, because when the auditors look back, then they know where the fault lies.
But at the same time, we have skin in the
Well,
game
right, we need to
too,
have
so.
more finance.
And we're paying the employees.
Yeah, so I'm not,
Buying new radios, buying new equipment?
Right.
right.
Exactly.
So us holding back right now, I feel, I'm not ashamed to say we've held back for the first quarter yet. We're holding it back right now. Because this needs to be
Resolved.
rectified, resolved.
Right.
The whole money part has been out there. They have
Going on long
received
enough.
thing, it's out there. There's no, you know what I mean? It's not a matter of, and if it's a matter of dispute, then tell us, you know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't take forever to figure it out. And then tell us, we'll go back and forth, or we'll disagree or whatever, but, So maybe this discussion right here is good too. We've had it. I know Mr. Montello will have another conversation with their legal end, and, it needs to be resolved.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Angela, I want to thank you for trying to keep everything separate. That's the way it should be.
It is, and my hope in the future, when we've resolved everything, and I let them know this, is that I will propose legislation to repeal that income tax piece. I have no problem not taking withholding all year and reconciling with them for purchase of equipment at the end of the year. I just don't feel we need to be their bank, though, and take it and hold it for them and give it back to them. I think
No.
that was a little bit of a squirrely move. I'm not, it's just not necessary.
That was the other part that
It muddies things.
That was the other part that I was going to bring up. That just doesn't
So in the future, I
sound
will
right.
plan to
I don't
repeal
know
that.
if how the auditors felt about that.
He agreed. It's not that it's anything wrong to do it that way, but it's just not necessary.
Right.
Yeah,
If
it
we all
wasn't
agree, if we all
illegal.
agree that we don't need to take the withholding, and at the end of the year, you'll give me receipts and I'll reconcile, then that is enough for the auditor.
It was never illegal to do that. When I came in this position, that was one thing we pointed to the auditor, because there was it's illegal, this and that. It never was. The auditor just said there's other ways to do it that might be cleaner.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says what we're doing is things, which is important, because none of us, that was never the intent. But it could be cleaned up, and that's what we're gonna do. So, but,
Right, and Mr. Montello was not here at that time that we did that, but that's exactly why we have an attorney sitting there
Right.
to say, hey, guys, that what you're doing is not legal. You can't do that. And that was never brought up because, of
Right.
course, it was
It was
legal,
fine.
what
It's
that
just an
that
extra step, in
relationship.
my own personal
Yeah.
opinion. It was an unnecessary extra step, because we are mutually helping each other, mutual aid to each other between fire and dispatch, so we
And I'll
can, we
point
can
out-
have that agreement that we'll reconcile at the end of the year, and if they did not have enough in equipment purchases and they still owe withholding, then
Right.
we'll get it from them.
And I'll point out, that's why we also have a fiscal officer sitting there to point those things out. If they have concerns that something is
Right.
not appropriate, they should voice those concerns, as opposed to not voicing those concerns to us, but to other people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then it just creates there's a custodial account there that we're, at the end of the year, we need to report if there's anything in it. It's just one more cog in the wheel of, we can clean it up if we take that piece back out.
Right.
So that's my hope.
and I will keep everybody updated on
Yeah, absolutely.
that, We knew we were gonna talk about it tonight, because it's there, But I feel, to be honest with you, I do feel it will be resolved.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, whether, if I was mayor there or I was a council member, I would want it resolved.
Sure.
So it's a, you know, they got a contract with us, and I don't think their council wants to see us shop around. That we have an option, I mean, we always have that option, but I'm just saying, I mean, it's, you know, it's a lot of money.
Right.
We give a lot of money, and they provide a good service. It's like
They
what
do.
Mr. Smith, as a mayor since I've been here, as mayor and as a council member, I get a lot of compliments on the firemen here, and the ambulance, you know, the paramedics, the EMTs. Having the vehicle here has been a great thing, so. Okay, is
All
everybody
right.
comfortable moving on?
Yes.
Okay.
Next line is police services. So this is basically for saturation patrol. We get money each month for the use of our vehicles, for instance, to be parked at Fabrizi for construction on Dunham. And then if we do have any full-time officer that would end up with a couple hours of overtime each month because they were out on patrol, this covers that as well. So that is what that's for. I'm just gonna leave it at 10,000. It's again, it's not a guaranteed thing. We could come in higher, but there's no point budgeting it higher because we don't know, you know, if Kokosing or you know, ABC or who we don't know who's gonna need us for police services, so throughout the year. All right, advertising, that's the University Hospital's Journal advertising. We were higher at the end of this year because they were playing catch up a little bit. In 19, they were behind several invoices, and so they played catch up on a lot of stuff. So if I do $400 a month advertising times 12 months, that's what got you your 48. Charging for building services, this is just admin fees when people come in to do their permits and their registrations. Finance department, this is title assessments, and then this would also be like our JED 3% that we take for administering the JED. All right, banquet hall, I left kind of conservative. We had obviously a lot of cancellations last year, but business is picking up significantly. So again, we'll revisit this come June or July. If we've taken in our 30 already, then I am happy to amend and, you know, get new certificates. Same thing with the community room wasn't rented as much and park as well last year, so I just left that at 1,000. The other charges for 1,590, that is engineering plan review, so that's a building expense. Court costs, I left where we had them budgeted. We fell short because of being off for a few months for COVID and people pushing back cases, but I'm confident we're gonna get back to par for that. Same thing with the other court fines.
But as you see, it caught up a little bit.
Yeah, we definitely caught up enough that I'm
Remember
comfortable.
me reading the reports, it was
Oh,
way
yeah.
down.
It caught up. We do still have a lot of, I think, from talking to Nancy, a lot of people with a lot of excuses on the phone sometimes, but hopefully we're gonna get all caught up soon on that. So going down there, we're all in court stuff, fines and forfeitures, that's all the same. Now, traffic camera. I said I'd be conservative. I was originally gonna go even a little more conservative and keep us at 250, but I'm gonna put us at 3. We were down from the previous year for COVID, but 573, we caught up on that too, actually, in my opinion. So I'm gonna budget us at 300,000. If any changes come to legislation throughout the year and we have to shut them down or anything drastic happens, we'll revisit.
Yeah, that's pretty conservative. as you
Yeah,
can
it's
see
still
where
pretty
we-
conservative to be
where
about
we
half of what,
finished.
yeah. Okay, permits, so that's building again and sometimes solicitor permits. So I'm gonna put that back up at 10,000, business is picking up for that. We pay 1% of that to the state on residential permits and 3% on commercial, so that's what those figures are. And the actual commercial permits, I kept it 3,000, we'll see, we made it, you know, that's again one of those things, every year could be different. Same thing with zoning, I just kept us at 5. We budgeted 2,500 last year, but ended up at 74, so, again, you never know in any season what's gonna happen there. So with those two numbers, any questions on that first page of revenue?
I noticed there's nothing in there for the, like the line items, the small stuff we would get for like baseball field.
Yeah, I left them
rental
because
and
we didn't
anything
do a
to
lot
eat.
last year, and you know what I'm saying, That's money that may or may not come depending what's going on for the season.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the mayor
Yeah.
knew or the rec department knew. if
Natalie
it-
has been in contact
or
with the baseball
Yeah.
people from around, but for
Players'
the,
Eye has contacted
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
Just like a lot of the things, it's been kind of vague because, but they feel there's probably gonna be something there.
Yeah.
So leaving it at 0, if anything, we're gonna,
Oh, sure,
We're gonna-
it's not the budget that I was questioning, it was
Right.
just, I hope things start to get back
Oh,
to
yeah,
normal soon
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
people
Natalie's had
use those
communications.
fields and,
Exactly,
enjoy
Brian.
the park.
we hate to see that. Every time when I go up there and walk and there's nobody there, it's just
It's
such a
too
beautiful
quiet.
park. And yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
I know.
it's just, you hate to see it underutilized, that's for sure.
For sure. All right, next page, cable franchise fees. We get approximately $7,500 per quarter on that. Could be a couple bucks more or less, so I just left that at 30. If we get more, that'd be fantastic. Contractor registrations, I left at 17, pretty close to where we ended the year. Interest from Star Ohio and Star Plus. We had a big dip because of COVID. We were getting hardly anything, and so I'm just gonna put us back to what we budgeted originally and pray that we get back up to that at least. If you see end of 19, we were actually at 11. We roughly in a non-COVID year get about $500 and change in interest in each account, give or take. And this year it's been like $42 in interest each month. So hopefully we're gonna get back up to par in that. All right, so I'm gonna just go through some other lines where you'll see stuff, but we don't have a budget. So basically 1,892 other miscellaneous non-operating. Our Visa rebate of a few $1,000s goes in there each year. We had a huge, that $92,000 BWC rebate along with a couple smaller ones. That's not something we can be guaranteed to get each year. One was a dividend payment, one was a nice rebate to us. So that's why there's money in there for 2020, but no budget for it because again, it's fun money. It's our bonus money. Public records requests is that other line for 20 that you see in 2020, and then postage and copies. I mean, those are things that's not, such a minimal amount we're not gonna budget. Vehicle release for tow fees, again, down a little bit because we weren't towing as many cars and we weren't going after as many people for a short period of time during COVID, so I'll just keep that where we budgeted last year. And then that sale of fixed assets, that was dishes from the event center along with, I believe, 2 old service vehicles this past year. Okay, in the new year, we do anticipate, I think, perhaps at least 1 police vehicle may be going, because one's gonna go down to rec. One will come out of auxiliary, go to rec, one will move into auxiliary, so we may have 1. Any questions about that section? That's the end of the general fund revenue. All right, moving on to street construction and maintenance. So, gasoline tax, I just kept at 150. We were low last year, again, go
I
ahead.
did have one question on the last line of, on the revenue side.
Yes.
982,
Yes.
extraordinary items.
Right, so I moved all that out, and I mentioned in your email when you got the budget, you're gonna see highlights. At the end of the year, everything from CARES Act, and I missed their last payment of 174, I forgot to move it, I forgot we got it in December, that's why that's still sitting there. Everything needed to be moved out of general fund into special revenue funds. So I thought I was good with what I had set up, but that wasn't, it was a separate fund for that, identifying it as restricted, but it wasn't a special revenue fund. So we had a special revenue, item for the money coming in, and then you're gonna see on the expense side as well, I created accounts in the 2000s for all the expenses that we had. So that's just been moved, all except that last little 174 we got in December, because I totally forgot we got it, and that was the redistribution, when all the other cities turned their money back in that they hadn't used by a certain time. That's how much we got out of from the rest. We had used ours, and that was our little amount we got used. So that's why there's still just a little bit sitting in there. And that line wouldn't be used this year. So if we end up getting any CARES Act money this year for anything, we'll use the special revenue line, which you'll see coming up.
And there looks like there might be some, well, it won't be CARES, it's the,
Yeah,
the other-
it'll still probably be, well, and depending on what restrictions they place on it, exactly, but it'll still
it'll be the
probably.
relief.
It'll be special revenue nonetheless, because
Right.
it'll be restricted funding.
We did get something that forwarded to you.
So gasoline tax, was low last year. I'm gonna keep it a little bit lower again now. No point in putting it at what we had budgeted. 150 I think is a pretty safe number. We may supersede that, so with people driving again. There's another item that had a dip because of, COVID. So, license tax, 75,000, same thing. It was lower auto registrations and everything. Okay, now, in the past, we had money in that line item 2011-892, which was an NERSD reimbursement, which, as you know, at the end of the year, when I undid all of those reimbursements on road projects and sewer projects, that comes out of there now because it went where it needed to go. Our transfer in, I've got budgeted at 570, and that's based on the tax budget and transfers we sent to the county. That could end up needing to be lower. That's something that we'll revisit closer to the end of the year. Do we really need to pull that much money into this fund from the general fund or not? And we could always vote if we need less. Right now, I have nothing in that sales of fixed asset line, but if we do sell it, as a matter of fact, I probably could have put the other cars. I'm pretty sure those were service cars, so they probably should have been in this one, depending which cars they were. But if we were to sell a chipper or something like that, or one of our plow trucks, that would go in that line. So we've got nothing going right there yet. Gasoline tax from the state, in state highway fund, same kind of things. This is the 7.5% that gets split up. So when we get our gas tax money, the big bulk of it goes into that 2011-225. 7.5% goes in here to be used for maintenance and equipment pertaining to our state highways. So if anything needed to be done up on Northfield on our portion or things like that, that's what we would use that money for. And then below that, license tax, that's the 7.5% of the above line item for auto registration and license tax. That also gets broken out separately. Law enforcement trust, court fines, I kind of upped a little bit. Hopefully we'll be up from there in fines and forfeiture. So these are kind of basically come out of part of the court piece. They just go into law enforcement trust. And then motor vehicle taxes and permits, I put us back at 25,000. Hope things are up again this year. With everything opening back up, I anticipate that that'll pick back up because that was another one of the COVID-related low revenue issues. Any questions on that section before we move on to police pensions? All right, police pensions, we're now in 2131, so this is what's coming from the property taxes. There's our inside millage, 87,000. And then our transfer in, same thing, we'll revisit that at the end of the year if we need it, 75,000. Next, water repair fund, when I do an amended certificate to the county, this will change. We budgeted 11,300 because that's what we were at for a while. Last year it was about 11,785, and this year I've already paid it, so that's going to be 11,785. That's already paid. That's paid for our fire hydrants, and so then we do the transfer in based on that as well, based on that same amount. Mayor's court computer, just in case Nancy has any issues, which I think she did last year, so we might be okay. But I budgeted 4,500 in there in case we need to do anything with that. Special bond retirement fund. My plan right now is of our renewal money to pay down 150 this year. We can adjust that if needed along the way. If God willing, we can pay more, we'll pay more. If we need to pay a little bit less, we will. And below that, the 50,000 to debt service, that's on the OPWC loans. Last year, OPWC allowed us to postpone or essentially skip if we wanted our July payment. We usually pay in July and January of each year. When I paid this January, I did not do a catch-up payment on July. I will let it go to the end of the loans. So, all right. Any questions before we go down to capital?
Angela?
Yes.
A question that I have for you, which I was going to ask at the end, but since we've got third party and issue 1 and issue 2 here.
Yeah.
We've got so many line items.
I know. I'm going to try to condense this. I'm going to go through with the auditor and make sure, since we haven't used them in so long, I'm going to condense the spreadsheet itself. It was here before I got here, so if we can, I will do that.
Okay.
And you don't have report 52s for this year yet because we don't have our full budget in. So even though January's closed, it makes no sense to give you nothing to compare to. So once that budget's passed, you'll have January and then February right along with it. And then I will condense before I do those reports. And take out or hide the columns we don't need, at least if we might need them in the future.
I was going to ask because
I
I
know.
hate to ask you to do more work, especially
No,
with
that's
tax
not going to take
season
long at all. And I
starting.
could, like I said, I could just
But-
hide them in case we're going to need them in the future and just not print them each time for you guys.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then for this year too, with your report 52, will we be getting, instead of 19's budget, 19's actual, 20
Yeah, I
budget,
hit
20
18 on
actual?
this one. So you'll get,
So I was gonna say,
as
could we
much as
get,
you want to see, actually, if you want to keep on there 19 budget and actual, 20 budget and actual, and then 21, or if you want me to hide 19 budget and just leave the actual column, whatever's easiest to see. I can do that.
personally, I'd rather see 18 actual, 19 actual,
Oh,
20,
yeah,
20
sure.
actual, and then 21 budget and actual.
Okay.
To
We can
compare
do it
with
that way.
where we're at and where we're looking
You
to
got
be.
it.
But then that gives us the past couple of years to
Yeah,
see where
absolutely.
we've been trending.
Yep, we
Thank
can
you.
totally do that.
See where we're trending.
All right, capital, here's our big mama line item. So we've got in there, I've got Dunham, I've got the concrete project, and then I've got part of the asphalt grant that we know we've already been awarded for the county. Now, keep in mind, concrete will be, that's gonna be hopefully a community development block grant again.
Which we
so-
did, we know we did get the material.
Right,
We did get that for the material. You guys
well,
know
right,
that.
but for this new year, we don't know yet, right?
No, I know, I sent everybody.
Yeah.
We got the block grant, we got for the material.
Okay.
And we have to pay for the labor.
Okay, so
Just like
perfect.
last year.
So that's on there. Asphalt, we know we've got the 250,000 from the county. I have it in here. We don't know OPWC yet, so I did not
Right.
put that 250 in because that whole project will be a wash if it can happen. If it can't happen, this 250 hangs over. They'll keep it out for us till 2022. So since we're not going to do the project, we will be revisiting in the next couple months when we know OPWC's given us their half. If we say it's all a go, on the expense side, same thing. I didn't put the project in to the expenses until we know it's going to happen. So we'll revisit, add in the rest because that could, we'll see where we're at that time. And there may be a time this year where when we add in that project, we might dip into the negative for a month or so, or maybe not because maybe revenues have come in from taxes and everything ahead of that.
Ray, do we have an engineer's estimate for that project already? I know we
That
have one.
project itself is going to be 500,000, but it's going to be a wash to us if we get the OPWC money because it's going to be 250 from county, 250 from OPWC.
Remember, that's
So
what we
we'll
were.
know in a couple months within a couple months about OPWC. Yeah, absolutely. And that's on that 5-year forecast stuff that I gave all you guys from Joe as well. Okay. All right, safety vehicle, court fines. So that's also coming out of part of Nancy's. I'm just going to leave that at 20 even. Hopefully things are picking up. I want to make a note for you that 4901,892, other miscellaneous non-operating, those were actually, was a line item where we had road project stuff that going forward now is actually captured above that. So basically when we get our reimbursements, in the past, I had put them in there, they're actually gonna go into either grants or intergovernmental, depending on where they're coming from. So I parked everything in grants right now, talked about this with the auditor and said, is it okay to do one of these 2 lines? He said, yeah. So it won't go in other miscellaneous non-operating. We'll identify it as grants and or intergovernmental, okay? So basically, it's reflected above. You're not gonna see anything in that line anymore. Then again, our transfers, it was at 200,000 based on what we sent for the tax budget to the county, so we're gonna leave it there for now. And if we need to increase it for any reason, again, we'll revisit that closer to the end of the year. Any questions on that page before we finish up? Actually, yeah, there's only one other thing on the last page, and that's the JED. And I kept that conservative at 750. We came in just shy of our 800 for 2020, so I'm just gonna, we may go up a little bit, but I'm gonna keep it at 750.
Mayor,
Yes.
on that JED, I know that, I think it was in an email, maybe, word that they were looking at ways of increasing revenue from the JED, whether increasing
be great.
employees or whatever. Do you have any information
I have
on
nothing
that?
on
or-
that.
Well, when we were at our meeting, before the end of the year, we have our meeting and the beginning of the year, there is some talk that there's gonna be some expansion maybe there,
Oh, at North Coast, yes.
Yeah, at North
At North Coast Behavioral Facility, potentially.
Yeah.
which increases that.
Yeah, so that would be great. And if we can revisit things to increase revenue,
Right.
I'm all about that.
So that's probably what you heard, but
Yeah.
nothing yet, but we're keeping our eye on it, so. So is Sagamore.
So my current projection for revenue is at 11,568 roughly, and that is more than what's on our current certificate. So once we would pass the budget, I will have an amended certificate sent out from the county. I will update for them what we, because we've got some other sources now based on the capital projects. that are gonna have that number fluctuate. All right, is everyone comfortable moving on to the expense side? Okay. So, starting with our general fund on expenses, and electric tax, like I said, oh, here, am I still looking at,
Where are we going here?
back me up, sorry, I've got my first page over here on accident. Bear with me. I flipped that. 1, 2.
Page 5?
Yeah, bear with me, though, I got 2 page 1 and 2s here, so now I'm wondering if.
Here,
what I
take
have-
mine. You want mine?
No, I'm waiting.
Larry, you never have mine.
You-
You can follow.
Okay, it's just the same stuff, that's all, that's no problem. Okay,
That's okay, John, we're good.
all right, yeah, I think I'm good, unless I'm
Nice.
missing my expense. Okay, all right, so page 5, moving on. I just wanted to make sure I had my notes copied in case I wanted to give you guys any notes, no big deal there. All right, so salaries, we said we're gonna skip for this week. Hospitalization, I left on there, I think I blocked it out for everyone else, but for police, we can discuss the fact that, even separate of what we'll discuss later, our part-timers have been working enough hours that they technically qualify for health care. So that cost has increased based on 5 part-time officers potentially taking single coverage, and we have inside knowledge that probably only 3 would, and it would be single coverage, but so that's what the increase is in that number.
And that's significant from 145,000.
Well, look at where we're at though from the budget. So we did not budget for the increase, you know what I'm saying? Costs increased that 3% or whatever it was, 3.5% over last year for us as a community anyway. And then we also did not pass that on, the employees pay 15%, but we didn't up that this year when we had our slight increase since we were in the middle of the pandemic. So, we'll make a little bit of adjustments this year. We'll probably, depending on what our cost is, I'll be meeting with them soon. With Oswald, if, depending on what our percentage increase is from the healthcare companies, we will probably have to, build a little bit back into what the employees are paying. But right, we were over budget on that, and I'm not sure why, because if you see in 19, we ended at 122, I'm not sure why we only budgeted 100, so.
But then now this year's budget is 218,000
Correct, and that's
from
assuming that we have
145.
more people in there than we'll take.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
pointing it out, that's a significant increase to us.
Right,
And we have to do it, I mean, that's the law.
right.
I mean, we're using the
And
employees.
we could come in a little bit under. Dispatch is not as significant of an increase, there's only 4 of them that are full-time, but. All right, life insurance, I just, anticipated a small increase. Each year we have a tiny increase in life insurance.
Bless you.
And workers' comp kind of is what it is, so I kept that rate at budget. We had a couple months where we didn't have to pay workers' comp this past year, and then, like I said, we've gotten some rebates on it too. When I can, I apply the rebates directly to our payments if that's feasible, but because we had some months in there where we weren't paying because of COVID and they postponed everybody's payments, I just receipted in most of those rebates this past year, so that cost could all get offset. Lodging and meals, I left at 1,000 for police. That would be if they're going out of town for training or anything. We've been fortunate that they've been having training on site and hosting it at the event center, so that means we've gotten some officers in for free. We've also done some reciprocal training with other cities, like Northfield. If they're running a training, we get their guys into ours, then they give us a couple spots in theirs. So crafty work on the part of our police. Uniforms and clothing. I actually put a little bit less. I needed to move around some things because I think I stuck dispatch in the officer spot for last year for uniforms and clothing. But that would be, what we'd have in there for this year coming up based on 11 full-time officers and 5 part-time officers. Telephone and pagers, I just upped it $100, just, cost, based on cost assumption that it's gonna go up a little bit. Printing and production, we budgeted 24, they have a color copier over there, and they pay a little bit more than we do, even though we own our machine and they own theirs, it's still kind of metered for them, and they do a lot of color copying over there based on, files and things that they need it for, so I put it at 3. If I see the bills coming in higher than normal from the vendor, I can adjust that for you guys. Training services, I left at 5,000, or I put at 5,000, I should say, based on where they ended up last year. And that's still a pretty lowball number for them, because I know that if they were going to go out of town, there's one specific training alone, that if they go out of town, the training's $1,200 per officer, plus then whatever, you know, the cost of being out of town would be. So for now, I told them, let's leave it and see where we end up. They've got training going on this week at the event center. So again, I thank them for doing that. Professional and technical services. Left that at 8 because a lot of the time what happens is they order they order their cars, and then by the time their cars come in, I'm not getting the bill from Hall Public Safety for all the outfitting of the computers and everything until after the next, into the next year. So that's why we had a little bit more going on in there. So I'm going to leave that at their 8. Now, dues and fees, you'll see 25,000, and that looks like, whoa, why so much? Well, we're supposed to pay seal every so often, and we've been fortunate that we didn't have to make the whole $25,000 payment to seal this past couple years, maybe just even last year. So we have paid our 5 already. They have asked for the 5 is pretty much our standard dues that we pay every year. The rest of it goes, and Stan can give a better explanation of this, but if they're not bringing in money from other means, then each village has to contribute, and that's what this other 20 is. We have been asked to pay 10 of that other remaining 20 now, but it's very possible the other 10 will be forgiven the rest of the year and we won't have to pay that again. But I want to budget for the whole 25 just in case. All right. Contractual services on their side, 7,000. And then their operating supplies, office supplies, 3,000. Standard stuff, staples, binder clips, notebooks, printer ink. Now their big line item, and this, you'll see again, these highlighted ones you're looking at, they're highlighted because those are places we had some COVID costs last year that I moved out into that other fund. So that's why those are highlighted. But 15,000, I left that the same. Once I moved out COVID costs, we were down at 12,000. So I don't see any reason to increase that, and that's their line item where they do supplies and ammunition and stuff.
Yeah, ammunition's the big thing.
It is. And Officer Gervaisi's very cognizant
It's gone up
and very
significantly.
good about trying to get out there when deals are happening on the ammunition side of things.
And they use it because when they qualify and
When they
train, that's when they use
Yes,
the
they
ammo.
do go to the range because they have to keep up with their certifications and everything, and for qualifying for their weapons allowance. Fuel, 30,000
Go ahead, Ray.
Where do the new radios show up in here?
in capital. We'll get
Oh.
to it. It's a capital purchase.
Okay, all right.
Okay. We had it originally up here in last year's budget, but I moved it because it is a capital purchase, so I feel like it should be in that section.
Okay.
All right, fuel, I left at 30,000.
That may
Again, with
be
COVID not,
increased.
we did a lot of toning it down last year during the height of the pandemic, and so I feel like we're gonna use 30,000 in that department easy, so.
Well, fuel, it was.
279 I paid today.
Well, and especially because
Right.
we're parked
Yeah,
at,
it's 50 cents more than what it was.
and we're
so,
parked at Dunham for,
yeah,
a couple months,
uh,
and.
That's gonna increase
It's only gonna go
significantly.
up.
I did leave 2,500 in their machinery and equipment line, even though they didn't really use it last year. Motor vehicles, repair and maintenance of motor vehicles. I left them at 15. They were slightly over. This is when, George at the service garage is doing some repairs on their cars. Small tools and equipment, I just left a small budget for that just in case. Supplies and materials for prisoners, I left at an even 4,000. We don't have prisoners here overnight, but they do sometimes have them for a little bit of a duration, so they do need to go either get, Lysol wipes, or maybe they have to pick up medications for someone who doesn't have their own
Meals.
plan, and some meals for them, right, so exactly, so that's what falls into that line
I
item.
believe we only have them for 6 hours now.
Yes, and then
Is the
after that, they
maximum
go to
we can hold
Bedford.
them?
Yeah. And then we pay Bedford. Computers and supplies on their end, I left that at 25,000 because, from time to time, I know they've needed a couple printers in the past, and then from time to time, having specialized equipment over there, we just don't know what they're gonna need to go with it, so, we can always revisit and lower it if they're not doing anything. So, any questions before we move on down to, the next section? All right, first thing in there's fire contract, and then obviously we get both contracts, dispatch and fire, have a 2% increase each year over the previous year for what's due to us and what's due to them. So that's the increase there. That'll be what's due for all 4 quarters. And then we've got contractual services within that $3,500, and that's something very specific, and I may apologize, I'm gonna forget exactly what it was. It's like a one-time payment for something. Board of Health, same thing, that's a one-time payment, $13,000. I just upped it because we paid more last year than the previous year. Any questions on page 5 before we go on? All right. So I'm gonna kind of just, I mean, we're in rec department, I'm gonna skip through the workers' comp and all of that. I did leave them a travel budget. In the past, Carlene and Carol had gone, I know Kalahari sometimes sponsors a convention for recreation, you know, so if there is any kind of training they can do, be it virtual or if something is live, I left that in there for them. 700 total for traveling and for their lodging if they would go away. They may not need it. And then there's another 100 in the actual training because I think the conference itself was like $50 per person. And those could be interchangeable. If they spend less on staying somewhere, but they need more in training, we can always make that interchangeable. Their pro and technical services, I left at 2,000. Trips, again, I left expenses at 3,000. I'm really hoping we get to have some trips this year for everybody. Special events, 13,000. So obviously that would include your fall event that happened. If we're able to have a hayride again this year coming up, those kind of things fall into the special events. So I left that where they had the budget last year. Obviously, we didn't get to do as much, so it was less, but no, you know, I didn't feel we needed to take any away based on that. Garage sales, I put at 1,200. This is all of our expenses for, you know, ordering the signs and putting the ads in the paper and all of that. Parker program expenses, 10,000. I budgeted the same as last year. Again, I anticipate more kids, so hopefully we'll have that. And then baseball, 3,000. Because again, hopefully we're going to have some more activity this year. I know last year we had no team, I don't think at all. I think we've had a T-ball team as of late, but then last year I think they combined with Valley View.
Right,
Because of the
right,
pandemic,
right.
there weren't enough kids. And then, yeah, exactly. So, and so then we don't have anything for Community Day again. Dues and fees, $250 to whatever organizations they would be part of. Contractual services, I put at 20 for them.
That's the Lake Club.
That's the Lake Club,
That's the
yes,
Lake
exactly,
Club.
sorry, to be specific. So we've been paying 18 in the past, but years ago we were paying 20, and they did request that we give them the 20 this year, so
Yeah.
I put that in.
And I did talk to Sean today, and she's been in contact, the Lake Club, you know, her as the president and the trustees, she's been in contact with Natalie and Maya, and because they changed the day of the, well, they had the senior lunch, the seniors like to go down there for the lunch in the summer, that's still gonna be the same, I think the same day, but now they're changing the days when the Parkers go, because they want to accommodate, I think the seniors go down they were going down on Thursday, I think it was, for the senior lunch at the Lake Club, so that's gonna remain the same. The only programs that right now, so the Parker program would be the same, and this is why I think council would be okay with normally what they get, the 20,000 versus the 18. They have hired more people to do cleaning and stuff because of the COVID. They have kind of, you know, they have to do everything else that everybody else does. Clean the bathrooms more, have more people there, make sure everybody keeps their spacing. The only thing that looks, as of right now, if we had to, is the 4th of July would not be the same as we're used to because of the way the regulations are now. But the bottom line is they're trying to do everything. They want to work with the village, you know, as much as they can as far as events. When we put the contract together, which is coming soon, we'll be able to, they're going to, you know, we'll list all the events. The only event that they really feel is going to change is to have, you know, the insurance, their insurance isn't allowing them to have as many people down there, as large of a gathering as we've had in the past. Which we know the 4th of July event is just a huge event there.
yeah.
It's a wonderful event, but it's just huge, and with the pandemic and where it's at, they just wouldn't be able to provide. So those are some of the things they're looking at, but that, otherwise, I think it's more than ever, we all think that Lake Club is more value. I mean, it's always been valuable to the village, but this year coming up even more, just like last year, people want, just like our park and our Parker program, it was great that we opened our Parker program. A lot of communities didn't open their park or program. And as you know, as council people and administration, people were thrilled that we had that program open and provided that. And I think the Lake Club goes in the same hand. I know all of us, just as residents, just want to go down there even just to get out of the yard, get out of the house, something different. So, they've made some changes down there, and they're, you know, it's the gatherings and the parties is something that's different, but they're gonna provide our swim for the children and for the adults, and maybe things will go well and we'll be opened up more and everything could be the same. But going forward, 4th of July would probably be the thing that would change in the contract. But so I had Angela put the 20 in there. I don't know if everybody's comfortable with that. They've been working with us with the 18 and providing the same. As we cut back, they never cut back the services. You know, they provided the same services for that same amount. And it would only be a 1-year contract.
And
too,
whatever
so.
funding we may get, if we get some going forward from, you know, the government again, in terms of pandemic relief, we can offset that extra 2,000 for sure with that. You know, they're an outside organization, and that would be a charitable donation that we can offset.
So that, Mayor,
Yes,
I'm fine with it. That extra, it's not an extra, but an additional $2,000 for just what you said, the COVID cleaning and stuff. Those supplies cost a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And that $2,000 will be taken up
Quickly.
Probably, yeah, very quickly. And as you said, we buy a service from them, and we also pay this money so our general residents in general can have a reduced or lowered dues for the season. There's nowhere else you could get that facility. I mean, if we were to build a facility like that, it would cost us millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Just look at Macedonia. So this is a blessing to us.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
It really is. So I have no problem with the 20,000.
And it's also so many days, like always, will be so many days that any resident, member or not, can go down there on those days. The only one that's up in the air right now in how they're gonna do it with the limit of how many people is the 4th of July. And the other ones, and it's based on their insurance and their liability, no different than us, how we operate, so. But they're ready, they put in a new chlorine system, they've done a lot of different things, as always. Every year it gets improved, and that's one thing we can all say. We do see, you know, besides giving a great service, we also see they're good stewards of the funds.
And
You
they've
know,
done it.
everybody
okay.
has, who's ever been, Mr. Limit, any
Yeah.
past presidents of that Lake Club and trustees have always been great stewards of the residents' funds down there, and you always see an improvement down there.
And they do it for no pay.
We do it for no pay,
They're
so,
all volunteers.
all volunteers, exactly. No pay with grief sometimes.
Yeah.
So we good with that then?
Yes.
Every council all good with keeping that? This is great.
All right, operating supplies for rec, I kept her at 2. You know, things were different because we needed more COVID supplies. So, you know, I'll keep an eye on that, but I'm just trying to keep everything, and Natalie and I talked, you know, before doing the budget, that she didn't have any major asks or requests. So operating supplies concessions, I left at 1,500, because we normally would have it close to that. In 19, we ended close to that. So, you know, that would be if there is baseball and there's other things going on there, we would have a concession stand open. Senior services in general for expenses, so on the revenue side, I showed you have $2,000. Now, we do charge $7 per person for the lunch. So that number could very easily go up, but 6,500 would cover our paying for the lunches as well as any other little miscellaneous things we're doing for them. So I told her I was not gonna really change her budget much because most of her items were pretty in line with where she had them. 4,000 on fuel, I kept that the same. Operating supplies for the park, I didn't put anything in, we don't seem to have a budget for that. If I find out something major is happening, we can address that. Now, lands
That
and-
was a capital, remember we had,
Yeah.
we bought.
Well, we did buy the whole, yeah, last year we bought so when Carol held the adult Easter egg hunt the prior year, that was advertised as being directed to having the funds go to park improvements.
Right.
So we had purchased a new seesaw, I believe it is.
Right,
And so,
exactly.
right, exactly. So that's where that money was from last year. Repairs and maintenance of buildings and land. No, sorry, where am I at? Let me go motor vehicles first. Did I do buildings and land? I did not yet.
Well, you're right.
Did I?
Land and buildings you didn't do.
Okay, sorry, land and buildings, there's 6,000 there. It's actually gonna go up a little bit. So you guys had meetings and talked about the buffer. And so.
Related to the event center.
Yep, for the event center. So since that is that building and that is the event center, I'm gonna put in, I have 2,000 of what I anticipated in that line item. It's actually, Rob gave me a little bit of a breakdown. We're gonna put up, and this is just for the one side as of right now, but ordering 6 red maples, doing 150 foot of 6 foot tall fence, and then 12 spruce at 6 feet tall or better. If they self-perform all the work on installing all of that, it's about $6,800. So I'll put another 5,000 into that before we vote on the budget. Okay,
Now, that was for the east side, where you exit, where the house is.
right.
Because as we know, when you exit there, everything goes right on their house. And also, we need a separation between, people have a tendency to walk over there and just, they go on their property and they shouldn't. And I know we've all talked about and agreed with that, so that's where that is. We're talking still, I know Jennifer brought it up to me the other day, we're talking about the other side, but that might come at a later date, looking
Right.
at the other.
So for now, this is just that one side. Like I said, I already have 2 in there, so I'll add another 5 to that based on Rob's calculation of what the cost's gonna be to buffer that one side.
That side is really just, and the person that, they've been very good about it and stuff, but as you know, there needs to be a separation between the two. Is everybody okay with that as far as putting that in there for, okay.
All right, repairs and maintenance of motor vehicles for,
Oh, I'm sorry, Gloria?
This is a little off the subject, but we're talking about the event center. I had mentioned before that slope that they have there, so you can roll a wheelchair up. It's so small, it's really not big enough. And for people with walkers. So if they can.
going into the building?
Going into the building, it needs to be bigger because you can't go up that. And, what are we, 53% seniors? So they need a safety thing to go up because there's a curb there. So they need that space.
With that, talking about that, we received, and that will be in the next report to talk about, but we did receive a grant for $5,000 for special needs and disabilities. And one of the, it's for programs or it could be for equipment. And one of the things Natalie's looking at is making the one set of doors there ADA. Not new doors, because the new doors would be a lot more than the 5,000, but Rob's gonna get a quote of adding, retrofitting those with some electronic, like a push,
Yeah, they
like
push
ADA,
button.
yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll also have to talk about the ramp,
Yeah.
that, so that's a good point to bring up right now with that, Gloria.
Thank you.
Make a note of that.
Anything else on that line? All right, I left her repairs of maintenance of motor vehicles at 2,500 again. Those are unforeseen costs, but if we do pass down one of the Explorers from police, then hopefully we'll shore up some of the expenses on the cars they're using currently. All right, skipping over the building department salary, that's actually just the stipend on the on part of that piece in there. So when we do salaries next week, we'll talk about that. Same thing for the next section of that workers' comp. Now, line 1,410, $20,000. That is, I believe, our CVE, our Sugar and Valley.
The engineering right there on, you mean 349, correct?
Yes, 1,410, 349, sorry. And then 500 on dues and fees. And 500 I left in for computers and supplies. We spent a little bit more this year because Lisa's been down there 2 days a week now, and so we did get her a computer for that office as well.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's aware, but if not, and for the residents, Lisa goes down to the building department 2 days a week, because, you know, she is part of the building department, and she was doing it up here, but we found, and her Rob said it's working out well, to be specifically down there, she can focus on building items. Where if she's up here, then, you know, she has
She's
one,
answering
this way
phones too,
Mary can
right?
fill in and take that, and this way she's not distracted. You know, a lot of times her and Rob, and then also Rob would have to come up here or call, and so it's really working, because they're taking 2 days and getting a lot of the stuff that Lisa puts through done on those 2 days. So,
All right.
so we got our computer down there.
Moving on to utilities. I left our electricity at 7,500. We were a little bit over this past year, but I'll keep an eye on it. I mean, I know we did put a new traffic light in, and we moved some things around, so that could be also what was part of our cost of going over. Natural gas, I left us at 22. So in terms of electricity too, just so you know, our current contract had ended for our rates on that. It ends in 2022, but I've already gone out to the person that does our searching for us, and so we've got our rates locked in at really no increase, pretty much the same for the next 5 years after that again now. With our suppliers, basically, just like you would go out and do apples to apples for your utilities. That's kind of, this company does that for me. I give her all the bills for gas and electric, and they will go out and shop our rates for us, okay? And we did also have, I think, either one of our streetlights or traffic signals that was on a different carrier. The cost had gone up, so that's why I'm confident we're gonna come down a little bit, because we moved that back to our old original carrier at a better rate. All right, so yeah, natural gas I left. I think we'll be okay and maybe not even need the full 22, but I'm gonna leave that. Water and sewage, I upped a little bit because when I started here, this has been going on since 17, we had overpaid on a couple of our accounts, and there were these huge credits on them, and those credits are going to be now exhausted pretty soon. So that's why I did budget 5,000 more on that end. We came in at almost 10 this year anyway, and when knowing those credits are gonna be exhausted, that'll be probably another couple $100 a month on the water bill, so.
Did we overpay because,
don't
like how they
know.
do an estimated bill
Well,
and
no,
then all of a sudden read it?
it could have also been this. So like I said, those were mostly before I got here, but like last year, sometimes if they do an overbill, they have an error, they do a huge overbill.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it just got paid, and then, it was like 2 different accounts. I'll have to look back and see which particular locations. But it could be that we just saw a payment come in for an exorbitant amount of money and it was paid back then. I don't know, because like I said, we've been exhausting that for 3.5 years now, so, on both of those. So I'm not sure.
Rob installed
I can look back at-
500 rain barrels.
Yeah. I can look back in the accounting system and see exactly what happened.
Gloria's rain
with
garden.
the payment on those. But it could be that we overpaid a tremendous amount, a bill that was read incorrectly on a meter read, and we paid it, and then they just credited us back. That could be exactly what happened. I don't know. Again, I budgeted the 165 for trash because that's about where we landed. I'll only do a PO, I think I've only been doing 3-month POs right now because we are on a temporary budget, but I will do no more than 150 to start. And then we will revisit partway through the year and see where we're at. But don't forget, a lot of people last year were doing spring cleaning because there was nothing else to do during COVID, so that could be the reason we paid a little more. There might be a little less in poundage going out this year because hopefully everybody cleaned everything out.
Did you have something, right?
Yeah, I had a question. So this contract is, this is a consortium bid year, correct?
Well, we're already still in our rollover that we had talked about.
Yeah, but doesn't it end like in July?
That might be. So then we can definitely revisit if something else happens after that, I
Yeah,
think.
I think it ends mid-year.
I thought we still had 1 more year to potentially roll. I could be wrong about that, but if we are in a bid year, then yeah, we'll revisit once we once the
Let me
consortium
find
goes
out
out to
about
bid.
that.
Yeah, I'll look
We
again
had
at the
2 years to
legislation.
roll, but we didn't discover that until
So we were in our
after
second year,
the
we
date
said?
last year, so.
Okay,
then
so
this-
that's probably the case.
So then this is the second year of it?
Yeah, so Rob and I will communicate about that, and he'll talk to me about the consortium, see if they're even going out as a consortium to bid again, or how that's gonna work, and then we'll revisit it. I can even just open the PO for half the amount, and, you know what I'm saying, and just take it from there, since we know in the beginning, you know, half of the year, we might be changing vendors, or we might not be, or, you know, cost might change. But I'm gonna still just keep that amount budgeted for us, just because, you know, we don't, it's a safe amount. I wouldn't go less. Telephones I left at 22. We did switch over some services last year that should save us some money going forward. Other communications, this is Connexo. Basically, we pay for our like we've got AT&T lines for things, but like our internal phone lines and our voicemail and all of that goes through Connexo, which is a division of our IT company, TCC. So that's what the other communications piece is there. All right, going down to regular service department charges. They get $250 each boot allowance, so that's their uniform and clothing allowance. There may have been, if you see that it's over 5,000 last year, they had self-performed a big job for us, and I'm gonna forget which one it was, but there was some big.
It was the Dunham Road.
Yeah, they self-performed, and so
The
basically,
culvert.
we included in this line item a little bit of extra supplies that they would need, because if they were out there and, they paid for boots in the beginning of the year, now they just trashed them, then we allowed for them to go ahead and,
Right.
replenish that supply. So they'll be back to their $250 for this year, because they saved us so much money doing that project.
They just did self-performed another big job over in, off of Sagamore in Sunny Drive area. But we'll report to that, Denny, I'll
Yeah, we have a
report from Rob. Rob's,
Fantastic
lot of good things going on.
resources here. We
yeah,
do.
it was a big job that they,
We didn't have anything in their pro technical services line, but I left 2,500 in case we need it for that particular one. That 1,620 is very specific to the service department itself versus the 2011 being to the entire village, so, for needs. All right, so then scooching down again, operating supplies and materials, 2,500 I left in that line item. They didn't, Rob was very conservative on spending last year. We might need to revisit that later, but, Rob goes pretty conservative as much as he can on everything, so I'm gonna keep that where it's at. Left 75 in buildings and land. In a typical year, as you see in 19, we're usually a little bit over that even, so I think that's a safe number to start out with, and if we need to look partway through the summer and something big came up, or if we need to shift some of that money and put it toward, if we decide we're gonna do a second buffer and things are looking good in this account, we could always, shift the funds and do that other buffer if we need it. And then machinery and equipment, so, chipper repairs, things like that, blades for equipment and small machinery, that's what that is. And then sanitary sewers, I left at 5,000, that's us performing some work on the sanitary sewers, so we do always need to keep something in there. All right, any questions on page 7? All right, page 8, there's just dues and fees up there. I left that at 1,500. We do have to pay for our updated, code books and things like that each year, so I left that in there. Moving down to council, again, it's just workers' comp in there right now, and then dues and fees if we would for part of our organizations, so I left that at 500. Mayor's Court, same thing. Training for Mayor's Court, she's got a $200 budget. Professional technical services for her, I left at 6. She didn't utilize any of it last year, but just in case she's got anything that comes up. And then dues and fees for her outside organizations, where, we're all a part of our, Northeast Ohio Tax Administrators and our Clerk of Courts Association, so that's what those are. Operating supplies and materials, she does, or I should say office supplies, so that's just as it sounds, her printer, ink, and anything she needs for her supplies in her department. And then operating supplies would also be, similar type of items, if it's not something that would fall under office supplies. Okay, boards and commissions, we can kind of skip over because that's just their workers' comp right now. Auditor of State audit service fees. I didn't put anything in there because it's not an audit year for us. We may still end up with a little bit that we are paying from last year. It shouldn't be too much because it's not an audit year. Uniform accounting network fee, that's my accounting system. 4,500, it was it was less money last year than the prior year, so I'm gonna leave it at 4,500. I haven't seen anything come out about what they're gonna charge us quarterly, but this is a equipment year. With our services, they provide us a either desktop or laptop. It's the fiscal officer's choice every so many years. Then on the opposite years, we get a printer. And so this year, the laptop's coming. So just in case, for some reason, fees go up, I left it at 45. I didn't black out John's salary in there. Sorry. It just kind of, that stayed in there. All right. So skipping down, income tax.
Angela?
Yeah.
One question there
Yeah.
with the solicitor for the OPERS.
Yeah.
It shows that we had 0.
John is probably still paying into Social Security. Yeah?
No.
Okay, then I will look into that because I meant to ask you about that. But we'll revisit that when we do salaries.
Okay, because,
Yeah.
For
that
the
was
20
Yeah, that was a
2020, you
question
mean?
I had because we didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
but there's a 2021 budgeted amount, so that's.
Yeah.
Right, I put a budget in there, yeah, again, we'll revisit it when we do salaries,
Okay.
but I put a budget in anticipating it should be paid, but I meant to check with you about Social Security, so, okay.
I'm trying to pay the bill.
So we'll come back to that. Income tax, my software for the MITS accounting system, I put in at 2,500. That's a yearly thing. Tax refunds, I'm praying we're not gonna have more than 75,000 in refunds to give this year. And then I'll keep you abreast if we have, large businesses a lot of the times, if we have an executive for one of our companies and they're out of town more than in town, that's usually a nice, pretty chunky refund that goes out in addition to any little refunds. We've got, typical refunds would be, we have got residents retiring now, and so if they had money on credit for all these years and now they're retiring, now they're ready for their money to back, in their own pockets. So, but the big ones are usually executives or are transport drivers that are not always in town, but their dispatch center might be here. So I'm praying we're going to have less in refunds. All right, moving on to the administrative side, we've got meals and lodging 500. Postage, that's just our postage machine, 3,000, and I left it at 3,000 because, I send out quarterly tax statements for second through fourth quarter. We've got some end of year things that go out. And
Dunham Road, we've sent some.
Well, right, exactly. So I'm just gonna leave that exactly where it's at, because we typically refill like $200 a month automatically, but sometimes we have to do more. If I've sent a bunch out, I have to tell Lisa, go ahead and refill that machine. The rental on the machine is $159.06 each month. Last year, I wasn't getting the invoices to come out, so yeah, that might be a little bit more, because I did just pay a couple bills that were from last year on there as well, but overall, that's what it would be per year. And then printing and reproduction, this is our copier cost to us. I left it at $1,500, because we were only at $748 last year. We pay a minimum amount, we own our copier, and I'm trying to keep it that way, and not gonna knock on wood and not get a new one for a while, but we'll see.
Angela,
Yeah.
on that one too, there's 2 lines that are the exact same, printing and reproduction, and right below it, printing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know what the other one would have been for unless it was broken down by department, so I'll look for you and get rid of whatever one we don't need.
19,000, maybe that was an expenditure
What?
for a new machine or something.
That could have been, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look. That was a budgeted amount, not an actual amount. So who knows? I'll check and see what that was back then. All right, election expenses, I don't know if we're gonna have any. So I put 5,000 in there. I know we will have November elections coming up, but you guys can tell me better, or Mayor, maybe you can. We had 13 budgeted for last year. We didn't need it, obviously. We had nothing budgeted for 19, so then I'm not sure what expenses we'd have. You're gonna have,
Yeah.
obviously, council positions, but I'm not sure what that entails. And I can talk to the Board of Elections too and see if we
Yeah,
have anything.
because
But
they have a set amount anytime.
so
they
I
have.
left some in just in case, and if I find out it needs to go up, we can talk about that. Training on our end of things, I left at 2,500. A lot of that is probably gonna end up being me this year, because I did have OML training for the tax conference, and then an ethics course, and some other things that I'm trying to do virtually to get caught up. Our pro and technical services, I left at 150.
Who are those?
So far, in that line item, we would have Great Lakes Telecom if we would use them. We would have, I'm trying to think of who else is in that one. The social workers in there. I can give you a breakdown of everybody that's in there.
Okay.
It's a bunch of miscellaneous.
Does
people,
HR
right.
partners come out of that?
HR partners comes out of there, exactly. Your partner in HR comes out of there, yeah, so.
Okay.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I can get everybody a list of exactly who comes out of there. Insurance and bonding, I left at, at 75, just in case. God willing, it goes down next year. The cybersecurity piece, I paid that invoice in this year, so that's why, the 59 is a little bit less than we actually owed and paid out for insurance for last year, because the cybersecurity invoice came to me closer to the end of the year, so that got paid in this year. Dues and fees, 7,500 for all the rest of the organizations, for the rest of us. And then machinery and equipment, I left at 2,500. We didn't really purchase any furniture or anything last year. We may not this year either, but just to have it there as a cushion. Now this contractual services for 10, I'm trying to think of what was in that line now too. I'll look and get you a breakdown on that one when I get the other one. And then office supplies and materials, same as it sounds. Operating supplies would be, anything that's not gonna fall under office supplies, so if I needed, I don't know, I try to use office supplies first, and if we use up that budget, then we go to the next, but, soap, gloves, things like that, would, PPE, that would've came maybe out of there originally before I moved it over. And then payment to the county treasurer, that's not something we're gonna have all the time. I had to pay the property tax that was in arrears on the event center. We're still in limbo with the county about whether or not they were gonna exempt that property for us, and so I need to reach out to her again and see if she's had time to look at it. But regardless, we owed $35,000 from one year and then another little bit from the other year on that. So that's what fell in there from last year, and I left some in there, I just left the 15,000 in there for this year in case there's anything miscellaneous we owe to them for something. Transfers, again, just like the other line items on the revenue side, that's in and out on the revenue and expense side, and so we can revisit those later in the year if we think they should be more or less. But this is the numbers we'll pass for now because that's what's on the tax budget. Page 10. All right, so service, we're gonna go straight down to uniforms and clothing on SCMR fund. I'm just thinking because this is also, I'm backing up for a second for myself to make sure I don't have boot allowance in two places. Uniforms and clothing, 5,000 here. Sorry, bear with me. I don't want to have stuff in two spots. Okay, so part of this might be George specifically in one of the funds, and, George and Rob, and then the rest would be the rest of the guys. I'll verify that. I mean, I've got stuff in both line items, so I'm just wondering if maybe that's how it's broken down on
Yeah.
uniforms. Because, sometimes we separate out the mechanic and Rob for where their line items are coming from. But I left that at 3,000. If they're not getting any increase to their uniform allowance. Training, I left at 10,000. Rob's got certifications he's got to keep up on each year, and CPUs, just like anybody else that's got certifications, so, and designated titles. Dues and fees, 600. Operating supplies and materials, I kind of bumped them down to 30. We didn't spend as much last year. Rob and I will keep in close contact over the course of the year to save funds still if we can there. And then I left their fuel at 25. Repair and maintenance, buildings and land, I left at 10 because we do usually spend that much. So even though we were a little low last year, it's very conceivable. Machinery and equipment, I bumped up a little bit because again, we had some plow repairs and chipper repairs and other things that needed to happen last year. So I left that where it is. Repair and maintenance of motor vehicles, they pulled in at 20. I left it at 30 because we're running such old vehicles. And right now I have nothing in the budget for new vehicles for them.
Right.
I'm going to leave the repair tag at 30,000.
So there's a lot of areas we could have been a little more conservative, but it's
Knowing
a very
what we're
realistic
facing,
budget.
right.
Sure.
Right. And then mineral salt, coal patch gravel, 130. That's almost right where we rolled in, so I'm leaving it there. We can also tap into this line item here. That 15,000 and that salt line item below that is actually what comes from that state highway money, so that's why it's an even 15 there. And it's, if you look at, I think it was 15 budgeted on the other side too originally last year. So that can be used kind of as our a cushion for salt, if you will. And then going down to law enforcement trust professional services, I've got 6,000 in there. And that typically, I believe that 6,000 is RO, if I'm not mistaken. And RO is getting up there in years, so he's got a lot of vet bills, so,
Don't say
with
that.
allergies and
Don't say
medications
that.
and stuff, so yeah, so that's why I bumped him up a little bit, because he did go over last year, you know, just trying to keep him healthy and
And we've had this, me and Mike have discussions, but he's still very effective and
Oh,
very
yeah.
healthy
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
in doing his job, so.
yeah.
Because some people have asked about his age and, you know, his effectiveness and stuff.
Well, and he's recently been asked to come to other communities for searches and stuff too.
Yep. All right, so moving on to page 11, Police and Fire Pension Fund. This is obviously what we pay out, so 180,000. Property tax collection fees that we pay out toward that, 150. So when I get the disbursement from the property taxes, there's always some, you know, fees on there. Utility distribution system from our water, this coincides with that revenue side where I said we would do the transfer because we did end up paying that bill already, and it's 11,785. Now, in between there is where you'll see those 2020 COVID expenses. That's where I had to move and make line items. Part of our money went toward the part-time police salary, a little bit went toward unemployment compensation for a couple different employees. I used part of it for the fire contract. A big chunk of it obviously went to recording meetings and PPE. And so I broke that down just as such as what we used it for. This is kind of what was on my report, only, we had to do two to three different reports to the county based on, what we used our money for.
Which was a little more detailed.
Right, and the only thing, like I said, I forgot about that $174. It's not that we didn't use it, we actually went about $4,200 over what we were given. So that 174 is definitely utilized in here, if you look at what we received in versus what we, paid out, so. All right, Mayor's Court Computer Fund, again, leaving 3,000 in there just in case she needs something, because we do pull into that fund as well, that 4,000 that we saw on the other, side of the piece. Special bond retirement, there's that OPWC 50,000 again, and then there is, if I pay down 150, that'll be our, what we took in this year is our renewal bond. That'll get, we net it out because we have to account for the whole thing because we always pay it off, redo it, pay it off, redo it. So I did not figure Dunham into any of this yet because we're going to pay everything off, and then I'm going to find out if we have to pay it all back at once or if we are able to use some of it for other infrastructure here. So I'll keep you posted.
Right, as we talked earlier, we talked maybe about using some of it for some secondary roads.
If we're able, right?
If we're able, and
So
our
we can
financial
revisit.
status is better.
Yeah. All right, so then down at the bottom, capital improvements, engineering services, sorry, that's actually our Sugar and Valley there. Our other one is probably Safe Built that I was looking at before. The 25,000 was Safe Built, this is Sugar and Valley, sorry.
But one of them, maybe not that one, but one of them is the engineer's contract.
That's a separate
and one of
salary,
them's-
he's got a separate salary line,
Right,
right, because he's paid through payroll.
exactly.
Right, so he's in a salary line though, this isn't a salary line.
This is the
This is the actual
engineering
Sugar and
firm.
Valley, exactly, and like I said, that 25 was Safe Built, that was under the building department.
But that's a $0 amount.
No, it's
No, you're looking at
200,000.
Oh, other-
4901, 800, 349, 200,000.
Oh, okay, other pro services.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, flipping over to page 12, we're still in the capital account. So this 35.5 equipment police, that's where the radios are parked. That is gonna be inclusive of if we were to make a payment on the lease at the end of the year, it was 26 and change, or almost 27. We also need to pay North Coast to get everything up and running once the radios are here. And then we will have a monthly subscription fee with, I'm gonna forget the name of that company, but we have a monthly subscription fee we're gonna pay as well for the radios. That I think is $5.50 a month.
Is that
So-
for maintenance of the radios?
Kind of, but I think it's more an airwave subscription thing. I can get you, I have all the info from Shannon, so I
Like
can
an
get you.
FCC thing or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can get you all of that, if you want backup for it, but I included that in that number, just so you know. All right, motor vehicles police, I did budget one car for the police. inclusive of it being outfitted. That's why it's at 45. You can see there was 30 budgeted on a car last year, but we all know the car might be 30, and that's not really the end price of the car, because we have a lot to do to a police car. So I did budget one in there.
Angela, on the vehicles, I noticed that some things have been moved around and stuff, and...
Well, some of it was for road last year, so something, Rob got 2 new trucks,
Right.
police got vehicles, 2 new vehicles.
Well, my question was, were these moved to capital improvement? Because it would have been found before under...
They've been under here the whole time. They're a capital purchase, so this is where they've been.
Okay,
I didn't move them at all, other than to break them out. Like, if you go in my
Okay.
accounting system, it's gonna be on one line item, but really, I broke them out by department.
okay, well, I
That's it.
thought they were listed
You
under
may,
the
maybe I had them at
departments
one point all
before.
one line.
Yeah, I thought they were listed under departments before, that's why I was
No,
wondering.
they're a capital purchase, so they're in the capital section.
Okay,
So maybe I had them both under one line at some point in the year, that's quite possible, but we did 2 vehicles for each last year. All right, so I put that one in.
Are we okay with, well, let's go through the budget, I think, okay.
All right, included in this number for our capital projects, again, is Dunham, and Dunham was budgeted at 2.5 million and change based on Fabrizi's bid. So, on the revenue side, we are anticipating, the max we're gonna get is 1.9 million from the county, that's what's inclusive of our budget, but again, these numbers will fluctuate if Fabrizi comes in less overall on our part of the project versus, you know what I mean? So I put in what I was off the bid. I've also got in there the concrete project, and then I think that's all I have in there right now. But this is inclusive of that change order piece as well, and the revenue side was inclusive of the money we're getting back from Maple on the project itself and on their piece of that change order. So we're kind of all covered and up to date because all of that did happen as I was finishing the budget. So any questions in there on capital? That'll be something we'll revisit, again, like I said, throughout the year, if we know more stuff's going to take place because we've gotten more grants, or if there are any emergency things, obviously, we will need to amend and revisit. All right, down at the bottom, we've got transfers out to the JED. And that kind of takes us to the bottom line, currently at 134,513, but please keep in mind, I said it's gonna be 5,000 less, because I'm gonna put that buffer money into, so we'll be looking at like 129 in the black. God willing. So that's our starting point.
This 134, 513, 13?
Yeah, that's what we would be in the black, but I'm gonna take 5,000 more out of that to put in that buffer purchase for the event center.
event, yeah.
And so when we review salaries next week,
Well, we're
after discussion today, if everything is agreeable and copacetic, then we'll go back and we'll review salaries. This would be inclusive of my anticipation of what things are gonna look like. Just so that you know, that we still land in the black with my anticipated numbers, but, and then if we have any adjustments to make, we'll obviously adjust them going forward. Oh, one other thing I do need to add of Rob's, I almost forgot, which will still keep us in the black and maybe even not need a separate item right now. So the police cars we've been getting, these new Explorers, don't fit quite properly on George's lift.
Right.
They can go up on the lift, but it's kind of dangerous, and so Rob got the pricing for me on the new lift we would need. We're gonna keep the old lift as well, though, because sometimes George can be working on 2 things
We
at
put
once.
the new lift in George's Bay.
Exactly. New lift will go in his bay. We'll keep the old lift instead of selling it so we can be doing multitasking because George seems to love that. For installation and the lift, it's going to be close about $8,000. Okay,
Repeat the number?
$8,000. So I'm going to look to see, before next week's numbers, if that is something that I think already fits into what I have here, or if I need to increase something for that. Okay.
Yeah, see if it fits in.
It's going to benefit all cars, obviously, but we need it specifically for these new police vehicles because we don't want George in a dangerous situation.
So the worst scenario would be the 5,000,
Yeah, worst scenario is we're going to end up closer to 121
5,000 plus the 8,
if I
another
have to add the 8 in.
13,000
Yep,
that we would take off what we're in the black.
yeah.
If,
And again, we're going to revisit throughout the year, so
right.
that's our starting point, to not be in the red, thank God. And then hopefully, we've got some other good windfalls and things coming along the way. The last section you have is just the general fund, which right now had, some encumbrances already in there at the end of the year. So basically, it just pulled the numbers, I just pulled them, gonna show the same bottom line for you guys of the 134 right now. And then just that little reminder that where we landed last year was at 42,547 in the black. So,
And I'd just like to make the point, Mayor, even though, as Angela said, we're at a surplus so far of the $134,500, that's accounting for this year. If I mention the amount that the lump sum that we're going to get from Oakwood, had that been paid through the years, this amount here would be
well,
far
right, we would
less.
shift.
And I just want to make that point, that this amount really isn't 134,000.
We'd be a little more even now, and we would have ended up farther ahead last year
Yeah.
if Oakwood had been paying along
Right.
the way. Right,
Yeah, so I just
exactly.
want to make that point for everybody
Yeah.
that's watching and everything.
We're about almost the same as, if that were the case, we'd be close to being almost the same.
Right.
As last year's budget,
Yeah.
right?
This year, we will, some things we know are coming, well, sure. The Smith and Obie project is very, very close, so there will be the sale of that land, which is the appraised amount. That we know is getting very close, hoping to have something soon. They're still just working out, we offered, put basically a development agreement together, which you guys seen, and he's working on his plans and his numbers for that, but that's getting closer. So that is one positive thing. We're still, the Ford thing is still in the works. They did have a purchase agreement date, according to the broker, that got pushed out some more because of things, but they're still moving with that purchaser. But anytime you have a purchase agreement and a date's set and they don't meet that date, then it starts to process over.
Anything major in there that is striking to anyone right now on the operating side of things that you think like, no way, that should be changed, we shouldn't be doing that, no, we need more? Okay.
And I know, because I know we talked, Ray, I talked to you that we thought we'd have it at the beginning of this week and last week and have everybody have time to look at it. It didn't happen that way. So doesn't mean we can't have another
Right.
meeting, we got to the end of the month, we want to all be comfortable with it and stuff, but this is a real budget here, it really went through.
Yeah, I went down to the minute as much as I could, we're very up to date as things were happening, so.
And it's realistic, as you've seen, a lot stayed the same, some things we've increased,
Hardest part is we know we had capital projects, right? So here, we only have so much revenue you're counting on, and then you have these projects, so, yeah. So the balance there, that's why I said when we revisit, there might be a time in the year we dip for a minute and then come back out of it later once we get reimbursements, but that's why we just keep revisiting. So.
Do we want to continue with it, or are everybody kind of good for this evening for that? And we'll ask for adjournment and move to the.
I think it's a very
I know
good,
it's
realistic budget.
I feel the same way. How does everybody, you want, any questions before we, I know it gets to be a long night here.
Started at 6.
Everybody good? Ray, Brian, Gloria?
Yeah.
I
Jennifer,
think
Denny?
everyone just needs to digest it.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, that's good. And we went, things, and Angela's
And
always
call me
available.
if you have
Yep.
questions later
You
on, now
explained
that
it very
you've
well.
gone through it and want to look at it when you have a minute.
But like we said, those would probably be the only two things that would change here would be the buffer and
Yeah, the buffer and
Rob's
the lift, and again, I'm gonna try to see if right now, if that lift can already be part of what's here potentially. Because if it can, then I won't add to the budget.
And the lift's actually not, I mean, it's a good thing, because if one lift breaks, then we've always been kind of in a jam there. And he needs the lift. I mean, there's just, that lift
Yeah.
is such an invaluable tool at that
Well,
service.
you can be working on two cars at the same time.
Two cars at once, or
Absolutely.
you don't get a job done and you gotta leave it up on the rack, where now they take it down, because if he's waiting for a part and he wants to work on another vehicle, I mean, it will save labor too, time that he
Save
puts
time.
on it.
Well, but more importantly, it's not a matter of
safety. It's a
convenience, it's a matter of
safety.
safety.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So-
that's the biggest, that is
Yeah.
the biggest part. Okay, well, do I have a motion for adjournment of the committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, March 9th?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn the meeting of the committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Gloria.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilman Linville?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Churlowski?
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon?
Yes.
Okay. Committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, adjourned at 9:51 PM. Yeah, what, keep us going, Sarah, we're gonna just, I mean, we're gonna have another meeting, so, but I would like to, would everybody like to, I wanna take a minute break
Yes.
to use the restroom.
This one's gonna be the long meeting.
We're gonna go back, we're gonna open up the special council meeting, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we're ready. We're ready, Sarah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody back. This is for the special council meeting of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, at 10:01 PM. This meeting is being live streamed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are following House Bill 404 that allows public bodies to meet electronically through July of 2021. Okay, roll call.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Here.
Councilman Linville.
Present.
Councilwoman Allen.
Here.
Councilwoman Terlasky.
Here.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Here.
Councilman Whedon.
Here. All of council present, along with our fiscal officer Angela Rive and our law solicitor John Montello. Okay. We're going to go through the legislation. We just got through our COW meeting. Some of this legislation we did have on readings from last month. So we have Resolution 2021-4, Internet Auction. Who would like to introduce that for second reading?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce Resolution 2021-4 for second reading on internet auctions.
Second.
Second by Ray. Okay, that's all we need. We don't need to vote on that, correct, John?
Correct.
Okay. Item B, Resolution 2021-6, blanket purchase orders.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have Resolution 2021-6 for blanket purchase orders on second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mary?
Mayor.
Mary got it.
That was almost like a photo finish there.
In tandem.
Okay, so that is on second, that,
Who's
at the
Harmon?
second reading. Item C, Resolution 2021-7, Sharpscape Senior Lawn Care.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to read for first reading Resolution 2021-7, Sharpscape Senior Lawn Care. Should I read the whole title to that, John?
Oh, I guess it's just the first reading, not that.
Okay. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Sharpscapes Incorporated for a lawn care service program for senior or handicapped residents of the village of Walton Hills, Ohio for the year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, I think Mary might have got you there, Gloria. Okay, second by Mary. Item D, Resolution 2021-8, change order number 1.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce Resolution 2021-8, change order number 1 for Breezy Trucking and Paving, Inc. for first reading. A resolution authorizing change order number 1 for Breezy Trucking and Paving Company, Inc., increasing the contract by $90,962 for the reconstruction of Dunham Road and Tickers Creek Road and declaring an emergency.
That's fine, it's still on
Yeah,
second,
well-
it's still on first reading.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Brian got you, okay. Okay, so, thank you for that. Those items will also be on the council meeting next week then. Okay? Item 4. Can I have a motion there?
Mayor Colograph, members of council, I move that we would move into executive session, enter into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters pursuant to revised code 121.22 G4, and to discuss compensation of public employees or officials not included in the collective bargaining agreement, but recognized by ordinance pursuant to RC 121.22 G1.
Is there a
Second.
second?
I'll second.
Second by Jennifer Allen, okay?
Are you going to let everyone know when we reconvene?
Well, let's vote on the motion.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Linville.
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Terlasky.
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon.
Yes.
Okay. Motion approved. Now, council go into executive session at 10:05 PM. We will come back just for anybody watching on YouTube, any residents or anybody else watching it. When we come back, we will not discuss anything. We'll just have a motion to reconvene and then a motion for adjournment. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. So we're going to go into executive session now. Can I have a motion to reconvene from executive session?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene from executive session.
Second.
Second by Ray, reconvene at 11:55 PM.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Linville.
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Terlasky.
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon.
Yes.
Can we have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ray Whedon.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Yes.
Councilman Linville.
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Terlasky.
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 11:56 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Almost.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Now we have our